Chapter 684. Ha ha ha, it feels great. Ling Xiao, if it weren't for you, I wouldn't have been able to enter the Tiger Man form so smoothly. Since you helped me, I'll let you lose with dignity. Decepticons laughed loudly, and the feeling of being wrong disappeared in an instant. In his opinion, he could already beat Ling Xiao. After all, it was an all-around improvement of 10%. The gloomy expression on Chun Meng's face deepened. She didn't expect that even Decepticons had entered such a strange form. She was afraid that she wouldn't be a match for the Decepticons now. When Jian Wuji saw Decepticons, he suddenly thought of Bai Qianjiao, who ranked third among the 6 young masters. That guy could also enter this form. After entering this form, his fighting strength was amazing. He could fight to a draw with Bai Qianjiao in human form, but he couldn't beat Bai Qianjiao in fusion form and lost miserably. Bai Qianjiao was a disciple of the Blue Water Sacred Palace, which ranked second among the 12 sects. Not only was it mysterious, but it was also very powerful. Of course, Decepticons couldn't be compared to Bai Qianjiao. Bai Qianjiao was 10 times stronger than Decepticons. How would Ling Xiao deal with him? Although Jian Wuji wanted to kill Ling Xiao very much, he couldn't help but want to watch Ling Xiao fight. This was because Ling Xiao's fighting style was very smart. He felt that he might be able to learn something useful from it. Just as Jian Wuji was thinking about these things, Decepticons began to pursue. He had entered the Tiger Man form, and his fighting strength had greatly increased. Naturally, he wanted to take advantage of this opportunity to completely defeat Ling Xiao. The continuous claw shadows kept changing in the air, each of them fierce and ferocious, each of them terrifying beyond compare. However, Ling Xiao didn't back down. He pulled out the Ice Dragon sword and fiercely collided with the opponent's claw shadows, causing the teacups that were already broken to shatter once again. Even the marble coffee table had cracks. Ling Xiao, lose for me. Decepticons suddenly jumped up. Like a fierce tiger descending from the sky, he fiercely slapped Ling Xiao with both of his claws. Roar! A terrifying and resounding tiger roar sounded. Decepticons seemed to have turned into a ferocious black tiger as he let out a ferocious roar. When the disciples of the 3 sects hear this roars TT, they actually felt dizzy and their bodies weak. Their heart beats violently. They had the urge to run away. At this moment, the Decepticon tiger was very confident in its attack power. After entering his Tiger Man form, the fear he had towards Ling Xiao had completely vanished. In a battle of this level, the scariest thing was to lose in terms of momentum before the fight even started. Decepticons was like that before, but now he had changed his decline and became extremely fierce and confident. He didn't put Ling Xiao in his eyes at all. Thunder and lightning, hellfire furnace. Following Ling Xiao's roar, the ancient hell dragon's shadow behind him actually spat out a huge furnace. Inside the furnace, raging flames surged. Then, thunder and lightning appeared around the furnace. Ling Xiao fused the furnace he obtained from the Moonlight Pagoda back into the ancient hell dragon martial soul. Because the furnace itself was formed from the Dragon Slayer's dragon core, it was very easy to fuse it. This hellfire furnace could refine everything that the hellfire could burn. Coupled with the thunder and lightning phenomenon, its defensive power was absolutely astonishing. At this moment, Ling Xiao didn't enter his dragon form because he felt that it would be too boring to do so now. The battle might end very quickly. This feeling was just right. He just happened to be able to practice the moves he hadn't used yet. This wasn't a martial skill, but a pure defense of his martial soul combined with the power of celestial phenomenon. Inside the hellfire furnace, there seemed to be a trembling roar of a devil. Under the thunder and lightning, countless claw shadows were completely shattered. This is too exaggerated. Is this still a battle between transcendents? Fortunately, I didn't force him to make a move. Otherwise, I'm afraid I wouldn't have been able to block a single move. Chao Yin was extremely shocked in his heart. He really didn't expect Ling Xiao to be so strong. Decepticon strength was reasonable, but what the hell was Ling Xiao? Shi Jiao and Yingwei looked at each other, deep fear and helplessness in their eyes. The two of them originally wanted to avenge Xu Mei, but in the current situation, it was obvious that even their eldest senior brother Decepticons couldn't take down this person, let alone them. Qin Meng was completely dumbfounded. She thought that Ling Xiao wouldn't be her opponent if he didn't use his soul secret technique, but now it seemed that she really thought too much. The muscles at the corner of Jian Wuji's mouth kept twitching. Die. You must die. He could feel the pressure Ling Xiao gave him. He believed that he could easily defeat Ling Xiao now. But what about in the future? There was still some time before the Sacred Dynasty's martial arts ceremony. What if this little brat broke through again? He absolutely couldn't let him live. Absolutely not. In fact, they weren't the only ones who thought so. Even the upper echelons of the three sects were surprised by Ling Xiao's magical fighting ability. This Ling Xiao seemed to always be able to surprise people. They didn't even want to blink their eyes. They just stared at the battle between the two, as if they wanted to record everything in front of them in their minds. Pung. The giant tiger-like body slammed into the huge furnace with a deafening bang. The giant tiger clearly trembled violently, as if it had been weakened a lot. At the same time, the lightning surrounding the hellfire furnace had weakened a lot. It seemed that this attack was a draw. Ling Xiao blocked the Decepticon's attack. Neither side had gained the upper hand. However, the actual situation was very different. The Decepticon's attack, which had been full of confidence, had failed once again. This made his confidence, which had already risen, sink again. It felt as if no matter what he did, he couldn't defeat his opponent. The more he fought, the less confident he felt. What made him even more afraid was that during this period of time, he had used up a lot of his true essence. However, Ling Xiao, who should have been more tired than him, didn't seem to have used up any energy at all. Instead, he was becoming more and more energetic. Ha ha ha, awesome. Continue. Ling Xiao could feel that his stagnant cultivation base had begun to loosen up. It was under this pressure that it started to loosen. Therefore, he was even more unwilling to enter his dragon form. Although he was at a disadvantage when facing the Decepticons in his human form, it was this disadvantage that made him feel the pressure. Only with pressure would there be motivation to advance. Bastard! The Decepticons was completely enraged. Seeing Ling Xiao's smiling face, his stomach was filled with nameless anger. 9 moves of the Tyrant Heaven, Tiger's Roar, Deep Mountain. His claws didn't work. In his anger, the Decepticons actually opened his mouth and bit Ling Xiao's neck. Because the distance was very close, Ling Xiao couldn't dodge in time. However, Ling Xiao had no intention of dodging. Chapter 685. Heavenly Dragon Golden Body. Ling Xiao's body was suddenly wrapped in black and golden dragon scales, including his neck, which exuded a black and golden glow. Although it wasn't as beautiful as the golden one, its defensive power was even more astonishing than before. Kacha. Decepticon's teeth actually broke when he bit down on the dragon scales, and 2 of his front teeth flew out. He covered his mouth and retreated to the side, cursing, "Smelly brat, are you made of fucking gold? Why did you break your teeth like that?" Haha, I'm sorry. It's really like gold, but harder than gold. Thinking back to when Ling Xiao cultivated the 9 Revolutions Golden Body secret art, he had spent a lot of gold. The Heavenly Dragon Golden Body was the result of inheriting the 9 Revolutions Golden Body secret art, so it was naturally harder. Coupled with the 5 Spirit Body, Ling Xiao's current defense was something that even a 1-line Heavenly Realm cultivator would have a hard time breaking through. He was a person who was afraid of death, so his defense and movement skills had always been at the forefront. These 2 were his biggest advantages. It's time to end this, Brother Ba. Ling Xiao raised his hand, and the overflowing rain sword appeared in his hand. His aura also suddenly rose a lot. Under the pressure, he finally made a small breakthrough, breaking through from the peak of the transcendent realm to the invincible transcendent realm. Although it was only a small step for him, even a small breakthrough would bring about a huge improvement in his strength. Shadow sword art, sword demon descends. At that moment, the shadow behind Ling Xiao was replaced by Yi Guxin's silent giant sword shadow. Then, 13 human-shaped sword chis broke through the air. Decepticons reacted in a panic, blocking 4 or 5 human-shaped sword chis. But in the end, he was sent flying by the 6th human-shaped sword chi, falling heavily outside the battlefield. You let me win. Ling Xiao cupped his fists to Decepticons, then looked at the Sword King Sect's inner sect elder. Senior, I won this round. Humph, this senior said he wouldn't go back on his word. Here are 200,000 mid-rank spirit stones. Take it. The Sword King Sect's inner sect elder didn't have any good intentions. 200,000 mid-grade spirit stones. If he were to throw it over, it would be like a mountain smashing over. He was clearly trying to embarrass Ling Xiao. Ha ha ha, Ling Xiao, I'll keep these 200,000 spirit stones for you. I'll give them to you when we return to the sect. At this moment, Wu Xiang let out a long laugh. With a wave of his sleeve, all the spirit stones actually entered his storage ring. This technique was extremely beautiful. If it wasn't for the fact that his cultivation was much higher than that of the Sword King Sect's inner court elder, he wouldn't have been able to do it. Thank you, sect leader. Ling Xiao really had to thank Wu Xiang. Otherwise, he would have to use the mountain river martial spirit. In that case, the possibility of being exposed would naturally increase greatly. To him, that would definitely not be a good thing. This kid was truly terrifying. Losing 200,000 mid-grade spirit stones was nothing to the Sword King Sect. However, the sudden rise of Ling Xiao caused the upper echelons of the Sword King Sect and Beast King Palace to be unable to sit still. No one expected that the most eye-catching person in this martial competition of the 3 sects wasn't Qinmeng, nor was it Decepticons, nor was it Ing Wei. It was Ling Xiao, who wasn't even a half-step Empyrean yet. Ling Xiao had actually consecutively defeated the Beast King Palace's second-ranked core disciple, Ing Wei, the Sword King Sect's second-ranked core disciple, Qinmeng, and the Beast King Palace's first-ranked core disciple, Decepticons. However, these 3 people's cultivations were higher than his, and their reputations were also far greater than his. This was truly hard to accept. The Beast King Palace originally wanted to use Decepticons to regain some face. The Sword King Sect also wanted Qinmeng to thoroughly defeat the other disciples of the martial competition. However, in the end, they had all capsized in the gutter and were dealt with by Ling Xiao. This was a scandal for the Sword King Sect and Beast King Palace. Who else wants to exchange pointers with me? Although Ling Xiao was a bit out of breath, he hadn't used much of his true energy. His mountain river martial soul originally had the effect of swallowing true energy. In addition to the smelting effect of the Hellfire Crucible, his true energy consumption was negligible. Even if he were to fight with Jianwuji now, he absolutely wouldn't be afraid. Of course, winning or not winning was another matter. After all, this was just an exchange of pointers. If he lost, he lost. Ling Xiao wouldn't use the ancient golden dragon form or the sealed land. Those 2 things were reserved for life-saving purposes. Hearing Ling Xiao's voice, the disciples of the Beast King Palace lowered their heads. After all, Decepticons and Ing Wei had both been defeated. If the others went up, they would only lose face. As for the Sword King Sect side, Chao Yun and Qinmeng had both been defeated. Jian Feng had only been used to make up the numbers. Therefore, Ling Xiao's words were tantamount to directly challenging Jianwuji. However, regardless of whether Jianwuji would fight or not, the Yuehua school could hold their heads high this time. They had completely crushed the Beast King Palace and were not inferior to the Sword King Sect. Well, I didn't want to fight today. But since you insist on testing my skills, I will accompany you. Jian Wuji slowly got up and looked down at Ling Xiao. He said indifferently, but before that, I will give you a chance to experience my skills. I don't want you to complain when you lose. What do you mean? Ling Xiao asked. It's very simple. The Decepticons of the Beast King Palace and Lan Yuer of the Yuehua School will fight together. I will fight both of them. This way, the exchange of pointers will be more interesting. After the fight, if you still think you are qualified to challenge me, it won't be too late for us to fight. Jian Wuji didn't want to fight with Ling Xiao because he was a little afraid of Ling Xiao's secret soul technique. If they fought to a draw, he would be the one who would lose face. So he wanted to defeat the other people to deter Ling Xiao and make Ling Xiao give up the idea of fighting. Damn it, Jian Wuji, although you are strong, you are looking down on me by fighting two people alone. What's more, how can I cooperate with the girls of the Yuehua School? Fighting two people is not as good as fighting one. Decepticons might have lost to Ling Xiao, but he wasn't the kind of person who would be dispirited. After all, it was just an exchange of pointers. With Ling Xiao's strength, it wasn't wrong for him to lose. So, at this time he had the energy to compete with Jian Wuji. Of course I don't want to. How about this? Brother Ba just fought with my junior brother Ling and was injured. Why don't you rest for a while and let me fight with brother Jian first? Lan Yu slowly got up and said. She didn't want to team up. She didn't think she could beat Jian Wuji, but she just wanted to see how far she could go. Fine. Decepticons wasn't stupid. He had just been injured and his morale was low. He would be an idiot to fight with Jian Wuji at this time. It was also good to take a break. Lan Yu smiled and then walked to the battlefield. Senior Sister Lan, do you want me to tell you Jian Wuji's weakness? Ling Xiao asked when he returned to his seat. No need. This is not a life and death duel. It's just an exchange of pointers. I must be responsible for myself. Lan Yu smiled and said, But I still have to thank you, junior brother. Then, be careful, Senior Sister Lan. That Jian Wuji is very strange. Ling Xiao admired Lan Yu's choice. Not everyone had such a backbone. Some people didn't want to lose face and wanted to cheat even if it was just an exchange of pointers. Chapter 686. In the middle of the battlefield, La Jian Wuji and Lan Yu were only 5 or 6 meters apart. Both of them could feel each other's aura. Jian Wuji was as calm as a spring breeze. Lan Yu, on the other hand, felt as if she was standing under a sharp sword. She felt uncomfortable all over. However, as she often sparred with Ling Xiao in private, she quickly adapted to Jian Wuji's threat. The trace of fear in her eyes quickly disappeared. When Jian Wuji saw this, he couldn't help but be startled. Many people would be defeated by his fierce aura. He didn't expect Lan Yu, to not be afraid at all. She didn't seem to be an ordinary person. Brother Jian, your aura is indeed powerful. However, I have seen stronger sword auras, so this is useless against me. Let's see who's stronger. Lan Yu smiled. She believed that if she didn't often spar with Ling Xiao, she would definitely collapse when facing Jian Wuji. She might even lose without a fight. But now, although she knew she couldn't win, she wasn't afraid at all. A light blue luster appeared on her body. It was as beautiful as moonlight. Moonlight scripture. How did she cultivate the moonlight scripture? Chang Yueli looked at Lan Yu in shock. She couldn't accept it. She was Lan Yu's master. How could she not know that Lan Yu cultivated the Yuehua School's treasure, the moonlight scripture? Regarding this matter, I need to explain. Senior Sister Lan has taken Sister Yuanu as her master. The moonlight scripture was imparted to her by Sister Yuanu. Ling Xiao explained with a smile. In fact, he was the first person to see the moonlight scripture. However, this scripture was obviously more suitable for women to cultivate, so he didn't touch it. Yuanu, Chang Yueli gritted her teeth and stopped talking. It was reasonable for Lan Yu, or to leave her. After all, she didn't treat Lan Yu well. Lan Yu already gave her a lot of face by not abandoning her master. While they were talking, the situation on the battlefield changed. Lan Yu's body was bathed in moonlight. A vague shadow of the moonlight fairy appeared behind her. It was obvious that Lan Yu had been chosen as the lucky one to inherit the knowledge of the moonlight fairy. Of course, Dai Yuling's immemorial gourd vine martial soul inheritance wasn't inferior to the moonlight maiden's inheritance at all. Perhaps this was one of the reasons why the moonlight maiden chose Lan Yu in the end. After all, among the many disciples, Lan Yu was quite outstanding in terms of gender, aptitude, quality, and connections. Lunar Shadow / the Sword Pavilion seemed to have been plunged into darkness. Lan Yu's silhouette disappeared from its original place. The sickle-like crescent moon quickly pierced through Jian Wuji's silhouette. This move was very simple. It was just an ordinary true Yuan Qi blade. However, when combined with the inheritance of the moonlight scripture, it would be faster, more powerful, and more mysterious. At that moment, Chen Meng even cried out in alarm because, in her eyes, Jian Wuji was easily cut in half by that sickle-like crescent. However, after the scream, Chen Meng realized that Jian Wuji did not move at all. He had been standing there the whole time. Although the lunar shadow slash had pierced through his body, it had been cut in half by his body. That's right, it was the lunar shadow slash that had cut in half, not his body. Edgeless sword body. Upon closer inspection, the surface of Jian Wuji's body, including his clothes, was suffused with a strange metallic luster. It was just like a weapon. However, this weapon had not been sharpened. The heavy sword had no edge. But even so, it could cut through anything it wanted to cut. What a terrifying edgeless sword body. Jian Wuji has cultivated the Sword King scripture to such a level. Originally, there were still people who didn't believe that Jian Wuji had cultivated the Sword King scripture. But after seeing the scene, they had no choice but to believe it. This was because the edgeless sword body was the ultimate defensive skill of the Sword King scripture. It's too powerful. The edgeless sword body's defense and attack are perfectly compatible. Who can defeat him? The Sword King scripture, Lunar Sacred Scripture, Beast King scripture, and other series of martial arts were actually a complete set of martial arts system that had been passed down from the founder of the sect. It included defense, martial arts, movement, and so on. You could say that they were inheritances, but you could also say that they were martial arts. In fact, they were all the same because inheritances and martial arts were inclusive. You have me, I have you. It's really strange. This Sword King scripture is a good thing. When should I play with it? Ling Zhao's point of entry was different from others. Others were completely stunned by Jian Wuji's exquisite martial arts. But his first thought was to snatch this thing. Moreover, he only wanted to play with it and not to cultivate it sincerely. This guy had really seen too many good things. He actually didn't care about such a classic martial arts at all. However, with a playful attitude, Ling Xiao also comprehended some things from Jian Wuji's Iron Profound. Profound meanings were very mysterious things. Every kind of profound meaning was worth it for a warrior to spend his entire life to unearth it. Being able to comprehend something from other people's profound was definitely a great harvest. Lan Yu's lunar shadow slash was the superficial understanding she had from the lunar sacred scripture. It was a pity that she had just started. Otherwise, if she had completely mastered the lunar sacred scripture, she might not have lost to Jian Wuji. I lost. Lan Yu did not continue. Lunar shadow slash was her most powerful move. Whether it was power, speed, or even attack characteristics, it was the strongest. This move couldn't injure Jian Wuji at all, so there was no point in continuing the fight. Too strong. Shocking. It was completely shocking. Although Ling Xiao defeated Decepticons, it took a lot of time and effort. However, Jian Wuji did not even move, and Lan Yu or took the initiative to admit defeat. This was the strength of one of the 6 young masters, Jian Wuji. Chunmeng's eyes revealed a look of infatuation. She had always been secretly in love with Jian Wuji. Now she was even crazier. Chun Nanqing nodded with satisfaction. Jian Wuji was his adopted son. With such an excellent adopted son, even if his biological son died, he would not be so sad. On the contrary, Beast King Palace and Yuehua School fell into silence again. With Jian Wuji's performance, it was impossible for Decepticons to win. They would just go up and learn from each other. Ling Xiao also could not win. This was what everyone was thinking. Decepticons jumped into the battlefield. Jian Wuji, I know I will lose, but I still want to test your strength. After saying that, he directly entered his tiger human form, because he was very clear about Jian Wuji's strength. If he fought in his human form, he would definitely lose. Tiger, roar, deep mountain of the 9 moves of Tyrant Heaven. Decepticons used his strongest attack for the first attack. It was like a fierce tiger biting. The sword pavilion trembled. The house shook, and the air was constantly exploding. The second form. A smile appeared on Ling Xiao's face. Who would have thought that the tyrannical Sky Tigers fusion would improve even further after its battle with him? Chapter 687. Decepticons unexpectedly made a breakthrough after the battle with Ling Xiao. His body was surrounded by violent true essence, like a giant tiger that was about to tear Jian Wuji apart. Novels. However, Jian Wuji just smiled faintly and raised his hand. A sword light broke through the air. The sword light, which was as thin as a cicada's wing, completely blocked Decepticon's fierce attack. Jian Wuji still had a calm smile on his face. To him, this battle didn't even have the value of a spar. Decepticons, who was in his second form, was still not worth mentioning in front of him. Lose! Jian Wuji shouted, and the sword light suddenly soared. Bang! Decepticons desperately tried to resist for a moment, but his body was finally thrown out. He was utterly defeated. After 3 moves. Cough! Decepticons, who fell to the ground, coughed loudly. Blood spurted out from his mouth. He was seriously injured in just 1 move. This was just comparing notes. If it was a real life and death battle, then Decepticons would be a corpse now. What a terrifying Sword King scripture. Jian Wuji did not use any moves, but he defeated Decepticons with just 1 move. He is indeed worthy of being one of the 6 young masters of the Sacred Dynasty. He really deserves his reputation. Jian Wuji is already so powerful. How terrifying are the people ranked before him. The Yuehua School and the young elites of the Beast King Palace sighed in their hearts. Fortunately, they came out this time. Otherwise, they would not have known that there was such a powerful guy among the warriors under the age of 20. After Jian Wuji won, he looked at Ling Xiao with a bit of arrogance and domineering. Ling Xiao believed that even if Lan Yuer and Decepticons joined hands, they would only be defeated in front of Jian Wuji. This guy is too strong. Ling Xiao, are you convinced? Jian Wuji asked arrogantly. He did have the right to be arrogant, because he was really strong. Ling Xiao estimated that even if he reached the 10th form, he would not be able to defeat Jian Wuji. Unless he entered the immemorial Golden Dragon form and used the full power of the Hell Dragon Soul, coupled with his Mountain River martial spirit, he would not be able to defeat Jian Wuji. However, it could only be a Pyrrhic victory. But there was no need for him to win this battle. As long as it was a draw, it would be a victory. There was no need for him to reveal too many of his trump cards. As long as he was in his human dragon form and combined with Yi Guxin's martial soul and part of the infernal dragon soul's abilities, he would be invincible. He should be able to fight for about 300 moves without losing. That was his judgment, because he believed that Jian Wuji would not be able to display all that he had learned. After all, this was just an exchange of pointers. The Martial Arts Festival of the Sacred Dynasty was the real battle that would decide one's future. Including him and Jianwuji, they would hide some things. We haven't even fought yet. How can I be convinced? Thinking of this, Ling Xiao slowly stood up. Jianwuji was very strong, but such an opponent was more meaningful to fight. Today's martial arts competition of the three sects will end here. Ling Xiao, you're no match for Jianwuji. Why aren't you backing down? Just as Ling Xiao was about to fight with Jianwuji, Chen Nanqing suddenly stopped him. Chen Nanqing naturally had his own reasons. Ling Xiao was about to die. There was no need for this battle. If Jianwuji won, then it would be meaningless. And if Jianwuji tied or lost, his Sword King sect could not afford to lose face. That's right. If I fight with you, it will be bullying the weak. It won't be too late for us to fight after you enter the half-step heavenly venerable realm. In any case, the Sacred Dynasty's martial arts festival is about to be held. You should be going to participate, right? Jianwuji naturally understood Chen Nanqing's meaning, so he said indifferently and returned to his seat. Ling Xiao smiled and said, "Fine. At the martial arts festival, leave your title of sixth young master to me." If the other party insisted on avoiding the battle, he could not force him. After all, the people of the Sword King sect were very thick-skinned. Moreover, it was meaningless to tie with Jianwuji in the martial arts competition of the three sects. Defeating Jianwuji in the martial arts festival was the best choice. At that time, even Chen Nanqing would have no reason to stop him. "I'll wait. I'm afraid you don't have the ability." Jianwuji sneered and closed his eyes again. Today's martial arts competition of the three sects can be considered to have come to a successful conclusion. Next, as the host, I will give a review of the participants. This was the rule of the martial arts competition of the three sects. The main purpose was to raise the strength of the disciples of the three sections. The host, the sect master, would give a review. Chen Nanqing was somewhat dissatisfied with the Beast King Palace. The main reason was that all the disciples of the Beast King Palace had lost to the disciples of the Yuehua school. This made him very unhappy. Therefore, when he spoke, he was not so polite. From Decepticons to Shi Jiao, every single disciple of the Beast King Palace had been criticized by him. It was as if they did not have a single good point. Of course, Nguya has potential, but he still needs to work hard. Otherwise, the three sects of the East will be laughed at. At the end of his speech, Chen Nanqing seemed to feel that the Beast King Palace Master's expression was not too good, so he added another sentence. Sect Master Chen is right. This junior will definitely work harder. Nguya had completely lowered his mentality. He no longer thought of himself as a high and mighty genius. He was just an ordinary person. An ordinary martial artist had to start from the beginning. If he did not have the resolve to start from the beginning, he would never be able to surpass Ling Xiao, not to mention Jianwuji. After commenting on the disciples of the Beast King Palace, Chen Nanqing turned his attention to the Yuehua school. 5 people from the Yuehua school had come, but in reality, only 4 of them were participating. Tantai Lingzi did not participate, but she did not seem to have any intention of participating either. Chen Nanqing's first comment was on Lan Yuer. If you can cultivate the second volume of the lunar scripture to the first level, you might be able to enter the top 100 in the Sacred Dynasty Martial Arts Festival. Otherwise, you will be an ordinary person and will ruin the sacred scripture. A half-step, heavenly venerable, with 50% of her strength, who had cultivated the lunar scripture, could barely enter the top 100? How strong were the experts of the 12 sects? One had to know that Lan Yuer was the #1 core disciple of the Yuehua school. Chen Nanqing's words made Ling Xiao and the rest of the people from the Yuehua school somewhat unconvinced. Don't be unconvinced. In order to enter the top 100, a half-step heavenly venerable with 50% of your strength is the most basic requirement. Although it is said that the 12 sects of the Sacred Dynasty are ranked first, the Heavenly King sect, which is ranked first, has taken up 50 positions in the top 100. The Aquamarine Sacred Palace, which is ranked second, has taken up 30 positions. In addition, the Abstruse Fire Sect, which is ranked third, has taken up 10 positions. Basically, these 3 sects have taken up 90 positions. The remaining 9 sects will take up the remaining 10 positions. Chun Nanqing sneered. It is normal that the Yuehua school does not know this. Your disciples have never entered the finals of the martial arts festival. They have all been eliminated in the outer elimination rounds. At this point, the corner of Chun Nanqing's mouth curled into a mocking smile. Chapter 688. From the looks of it, Jian Wuji has brought glory to the 3 sects of the East. He actually made it into the top 6. How rare! La Ling Xiao said with a smile that was not a smile. Don't be unconvinced. You haven't been to the martial arts festival, so you think it's nothing. When you get there, you'll understand that you're nothing. Jian Wuji said coldly. Is that so? The more you talk about it, the more interested I am. Holy Sun, Mo Wushang, by Qinjiao, Lu Taiyin, Hong Sanmei, Jian Wuji. This is the ranking of the 6 young masters of the sacred dynasty. They are also the 6 strongest young talents of the sacred dynasty under the age of 20. Ling Xiao has already seen Jian Wuji's strength, and it is indeed incomparably strong. Then how strong are the other 5 existences that are stronger than Jian Wuji? He is a little excited in his heart. A frog at the bottom of a well, too arrogant. Chun Nanqing looked at Ling Xiao with disdain and said, Your junior brother Lung Hao's cultivation is too weak, and his skills are not good enough. Your senior sister Dai Yuling relies too much on the immemorial gourd vine martial spirit and can't fully display its strength. Simply not worth mentioning. And finally you. At this point, the ridicule on Chun Nanqing's face became even more obvious. You rely on only 2 things. One is your soul secret technique. Forgive me for being blunt, but if you meet an expert like Mo Wushang, you're just showing off your slight skill in front of an expert, and the end result will be you injuring yourself. The other is your immemorial black dragon martial spirit. Humph! If it's the immemorial hell dragon martial spirit, maybe you can be proud, but if it's only the immemorial black dragon martial spirit, you're not qualified to be compared with those geniuses. What's more, you're arrogant and overestimating yourself. This sect can already imagine your tragic ending in the martial arts festival. Ha 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 ha. After listening to Chun Nanqing's merciless criticism, Ling Xiao couldn't help but laugh out loud. Is this what a sect master is like? No wonder the Sword King's sect declined so quickly. No wonder they allowed a place like the Beast Fighting Coliseum to exist. This person's evaluation of him was completely wrong. It wasn't easy to achieve this. Although Chun Nanqing's evaluation of the other disciples was harsh, it was more or less accurate. However, when it came to him, Chun Nanqing was completely spouting nonsense, saying that his soul secret arts were weak. Ling Xiao didn't even bother to argue. He had only used the soul manipulation secret technique with the slaughter will, and he had easily defeated Qin Meng. This showed just how terrifying the soul manipulation secret technique was. Not to mention, he also had an even more powerful and terrifying soul secret technique. Soul dice. Once soul dice was used, even a heaven-tier martial artist would have to be wary of it, let alone a mere Mo Wushang. Ling Xiao had never seen Mo Wushang before, but he did not feel inferior. His soul force was comparable to that of a 3 talents expert. He didn't believe that Mo Wushang's soul force would be stronger than his. As for his martial soul, what a coincidence. He really did possess the ancient Hell Dragon's Hell Dragon soul. Moreover, this Hell Dragon soul had been integrated with the ancient god of destruction's will of destruction. Chun Nanqing was so easily fooled. It seemed that his eyesight wasn't very good, saying that he was arrogant, saying that he was overestimating himself. Ling Xiao really hadn't done anything that overestimated himself. Challenging Jian Wuji was considered arrogant? What a joke! Ling Xiao could defeat Jian Wuji without using the sealed land. Although it might be a Pyrrhic victory, it was definitely a sure win. Once he used the sealed land, Jian Wuji was nothing. What are you laughing at? Chun Nanqing asked hatefully. Nothing. I just think that sect Master Chen's evaluation is ridiculous. You didn't even allow me to fight with Jian Wuji. What makes you think that I'm overestimating myself? Ling Xiao retorted. This is the biggest proof that you're overestimating yourself. A trivial 9th level, transcendent realm, invincible realm cultivator dares to challenge a half-step heavenly venerable with 80% strength. If this isn't overestimating yourself, then what is? Chun Nanqing coldly snorted. Hee, if that's what you want to think, then go ahead. Ling Xiao smiled and stopped arguing. In any case, there was no point in arguing. He might as well wait until the martial Dao festival to ruthlessly humiliate Jian Wuji and let that kid see what true arrogance and ignorance was. Your confidence comes from your sole secret technique. What you don't know is that Mo Wushang, ranked second among the 6 young lords, has a pair of true demon eyes. Jian Wuji coldly said, "Oh, is he not human?" Ling Xiao asked. Jian Wuji shook his head and said, "No, Mo Wushang is indeed human. However, when he was young, he accidentally broke into a devil's den and was lucky enough to inherit the inheritance of the ancient demon eyes. His demon eyes have many abilities. They can see through the enemy's moves, exert terrifying spiritual pressure on the enemy, and even produce a terrifying soul fire to burn the enemy's soul. In any case, it's very strange. Even the Holy Sun has to be careful when fighting with him. The only reason he was able to win was because of his powerful restorative ability. No matter what kind of injury he receives, he can constantly heal himself." When speaking of the Holy Sun, Jian Wuji's expression was one of worship and respect. When speaking of Mo Wushang, Jian Wuji's expression became one of fear and dread. It seemed that Jian Wuji had suffered a great blow in front of Mo Wushang. That's too terrifying. If he really has such an ability, then it's simply impossible to defend against. Wouldn't he be able to defeat you with a single glance? The inheritance of the ancient demon eyes is indeed terrifying. If he can defeat this terrifying Mo Wushang, then wouldn't the Holy Sun be even more terrifying? Sure enough, none of the 6 young masters are easy to deal with. Whether it was the disciples or the upper echelons, everyone was discussing this matter. Most of these upper echelons were only in the celestial realm and only in the one-line sky realm. The 6 young masters of the Holy Dynasty were the closest to them. It wouldn't take long for them to catch up and even surpass them. Therefore, they naturally had to pay attention to this matter. I just said that to face the demon eyes, one has to be at least in the half-step heavenly venerable realm. Otherwise, as long as the demon eyes look at you, there's no way you can resist. Jian Wuji then looked at Ling Xiao and said, "After hearing my words, do you still have the confidence to challenge Mo Wushang?" "Why wouldn't I dare?" Ling Xiao smiled faintly. His secret soul manipulation technique might not be comparable to Mo Wushang's demon eyes, but soul dice was definitely more terrifying than the demon eyes. "I didn't expect you to overestimate yourself." Jian Wuji sneered and said, "Forget it. You won't be convinced anyway. Then, let's have a showdown at the martial arts festival. At the same time, we can also see what the 6 young masters of the Holy Dynasty are like. The 3 sects tournament is over. If you're interested, you can stay in the Sword King sect for a while. If you want to leave, then forgive me for not seeing you off." Chun Nanqing was in a hurry to arrange for the ambush of the Yuehua School's martial artists halfway, so he didn't have the mood to entertain the people from the 2 sections. His attitude was quite unyielding. After saying that, he turned and left. Chapter 689. On the day the Trisect martial competition ended, the Moonlight Treasure Ship set off from the Sword King sect to return to Yuehua School. Senior brother, didn't you say you were going to fight the Sword King sect? Why did you leave just like that? On the ship, Lung Hao couldn't help but ask. That was the original plan, but since the Sword King sect didn't discover that we killed so many of their inner disciples, there's no need to make a big fuss. After all, we're still at a disadvantage in the Sword King sect's territory. It's safer to return to the sect. Ling Xiao explained with a smile. In other words, if they find out, we'll really make a move. Lung Hao asked again. That's right. That was the original plan. Who knew that the Sword King sect would be so stupid that they didn't even realize that we killed those people before we left? Wu Xiang answered. I don't think so. Ling Xiao shook his head and said, Sect Master, it's best for us to be careful along the way. I suspect that Chen Nanqing is plotting something behind our backs. That's why he doesn't have time to care about other things. Otherwise, not to mention those hundreds of inner disciples. Even if it's about the beast battle arena, he wouldn't ignore it. That's right. You all take a rest. We'll pay close attention to the surrounding situation. As long as we return to Yuehua School, there won't be any problems. While everyone was talking, they didn't notice a strange moth flying past the Moonlight treasure ship. In the blink of an eye, it disappeared into the distance. One of the moth's wings was white, while the other was black. On its back, there was a strange pattern of a yin-yang fish. Ling Xiao sat there cross-legged, carefully comprehending today's gains. Although he didn't fight with Jian Wuji in the end, he still benefited a lot from today's battle. His comprehension of martial techniques, profound meanings, martial souls, and inheritances had all improved. Of course, the most important thing was that he witnessed Jian Wuji's strength and heard about how terrifying the 6 young masters of the sacred dynasty were. This made his desire to win and become stronger even more tenacious. The others were the same as Ling Xiao. They more or less gained some benefits from today's trisect martial competition. He believed that after a period of consolidation and comprehension, even Tantai Lingzi, who had not participated in the battle, would have a significant improvement. When one's horizons were broadened and they had seen more, their train of thought would naturally become more flexible. Sect leader, what is this? While Ling Xiao was sitting cross-legged, the true essence sphere had already wrapped around the entire Moonlight treasure ship. When he found that there was a strange moth that was always around the Moonlight treasure ship, as if it was following the ship, he finally couldn't help but reach out and catch the moth in his hand. The moth was very small, only the size of a fingernail. Perhaps because they did not pay attention, Wu Xiang and Heavenly Lord Goldenlight did not notice the existence of this thing. As for Chang Yuing and Chang Yuli, even if they found out, they probably wouldn't say anything. They couldn't wait for Wu Xiang, Ling Xiao, and the others to die along the way. Wu Xiang was stunned for a moment. He carefully observed the moth in Ling Xiao's hand, but he was a little confused. After all, he was still young. In addition, he had spent most of his time in the sect, so he was not very clear about the outside world. He was strong, but his knowledge was not enough. Let me see. Heavenly Lord Goldenlight also walked over and said, Not good. After Heavenly Lord Goldenlight observed for a moment, he suddenly exclaimed, Senior, what is this thing? Ling Xiao hurriedly asked. This is a yin-yang moth. Heavenly Lord Goldenlight looked around vigilantly and then explained. It is said that this yin-yang moth also appeared when the True Devil Empire rampaged across the Sky Dragon continent. Their master is the Moth Demon General. He is one of the 9 great demon kings of the True Devil Empire, the yin-yang demon king's subordinate. His strength is very terrifying. The yin-yang moth can be used to scout the enemy's situation and can also be used to attack the enemy. The closer you are to the Moth Demon General, the more terrifying the attack power is. I didn't expect you to be able to catch it. Your observation and judgment are really amazing. TSK, TSK, TSK. I didn't expect that after so many years, there are still people who remember the great name of our True Devil Empire. Suddenly, a huge moth appeared on the Moonlight treasure ship. This moth was slightly smaller than the Moonlight treasure ship, but there was no problem for 4 or 5 people to stand on it. At this time, there were a total of 4 people on the moth. Judging from their voices and auras, they were definitely not friendly and were very strong. Prepare for battle. It seems that a bloody battle is unavoidable today, Wu Xiang said loudly. Chang Yueying and Chang Yueli's reactions were not very cooperative. Although they stood up, they did not seem to intend to fight. Tantai Lingzi naturally followed her master, Chang Yueying. However, Wu Xiang did not have time to care about them. The enemy was right in front of them, and it was not the time for internal strife. If they did not take action now, when the enemy attacked later, they would have no choice but to take action. The 4 people on the moth were wearing black and white robes embroidered with yin and yang diagrams. Needless to say, they were the yin-yang demon king's subordinates. Are you really the yin-yang demon king's subordinates? Wu Xiang asked coldly. Hee, why are you asking so much? You're all going to die anyway. The leader's hair was also black and white, which looked very strange. His voice was ferocious and cold. It was clear that he was here to take the lives of the Yuehua School's people. Did Qin Nanqing send you? Ling Xiao suddenly asked. It's not good to be too smart. Go to hell. One of the black and white robes suddenly struck out with his palm, and a roar suddenly exploded in the sky. Boom! The thick clouds broke apart, and the terrifying palm energy turned into 2 huge palms that instantly struck the Moonlight treasure ship. It seemed that they wanted to destroy the Moonlight treasure ship first, and then slowly deal with the Yuehua School's people. Get lost! Heavenly Master Golden Light roared and blasted out with his fists. Under the flickering golden light, the huge fist energy collided with the resplendent palm energy in midair and turned into dust. The black and white robe's strength was not inferior to Heavenly Master Golden Light's. The Moonlight treasure ship shook violently, but in the end it wasn't hit and remained unscathed. Golden Light, Divine Fist. Heavenly Master Golden Light's hot temper could not be controlled. Since the enemy had attacked, he would not sit back and do nothing. His whole body turned into a golden light, and a golden figure faintly appeared behind him. I didn't expect Heavenly Master Golden Light's martial soul to be the Golden Giant. Ling Xiao was a little surprised. He thought that he was the only one who had an affinity with the Golden Giant. He did not expect Heavenly Master Golden Light to have an affinity with the Golden Giant as well. No wonder the 2 of them had similar temperaments. It seemed that they had a common interest. Kill! The black and white robe leader jumped down from the moth and pounced on Wu Xiang. This guy had sharp eyes. He could tell at a glance that Wu Xiang was the most powerful person on the Moonlight treasure ship. Humph! Wu Xiang responded calmly. He unsheathed his sword and fought with the black and white robe leader. Chapter 690. Ling Xiao. Carefully control the Moonlight treasure ship to land. Fighting in the sky is too disadvantageous for us. Once the Moonlight treasure ship is damaged, we will all fall to our deaths. During the battle, Wu Xiang secretly transmitted his voice to Ling Xiao. He trusted Ling Xiao the most. What's more, he and Heavenly Master Golden Light had already joined the battle and couldn't leave. Chang Yueying and Chang Yueli obviously wouldn't help. What was strange was that when the black-robed men attacked, they didn't attack Chang Yueying and Chang Yueli. He was now a little worried that the 2 women were colluding with the bastards from the Sword King sect. If that was the case, it would be troublesome. Sect Master, don't worry. With me around, those 2 women won't be able to play any tricks. Although Ling Xiao didn't have the strength to deal with the black-robed men, he was very good at dealing with Chang Yueying and Chang Yueli because of his spiritual body. He didn't believe that the 2 women wouldn't help. While speaking, the other 2 black-robed men also attacked. Although the 2 of them weren't as strong as Heavenly Master Golden Light, they were very powerful. They were both half-step Heavenly Masters with 70% of their strength. It had to be said that Chan Nanqing really spent a lot of money to kill the people from the Yuehua school. Lan Yu faced one of them. Lang Hao and Dai Yuling faced the other person. However, Lan Yu might be able to hold on for a while, but the difference between Lang Hao and Dai Yuling's cultivation was too big. Even if they joined forces, they wouldn't be able to last more than 20 moves. However, it would be fine as long as they could relieve the pressure. Ling Xiao coldly looked at Chang Yueying and the other two and asked, "Aren't you going to attack?" "Humph, little bastard, don't think that I'm stupid. Although you have the treasure given to you by the Moonlight Maiden, you can't take the initiative to attack. That thing will only react when we hurt you. This time you're dead." Chang Yueli coldly snorted. "What about you, former sect master of the Yuehua school? Do you want to wallow in the mire with this old thing?" Ling Xiao directly used the seal card to release a half-step heavenly venerable from the Sword King sect to control the Moonlight treasured ship. He was prepared to free himself to deal with these 3 traitorous bastards. He had already given the 3 of them a warning. If they dared to leave him in the lurch this time, then he would definitely not be merciful. Even if he had to completely exhaust his spiritual body, he was going to destroy those 3 bastards. "Ling Xiao, it's too late now. I won't interfere." Chan Yueying shook her head. "Tantai Lingzi, what about you?" Ling Xiao looked at the insidious woman and asked. "I will do whatever my master does." Tantai Lingzi's attitude was also very resolute. She sneered and said, "You're too scary. I may never be able to surpass you in this lifetime. So the best way is for you to die. Your appearance is simply my nightmare." "Oh, really? Looks like the 3 of you are tired of living." Ling Xiao took a deep breath and suddenly took out the Moonlight token. "Moonlight, Heavenly Maiden, you've seen it. Not only did these 3 people leave you in the lurch, but they also hate Yuehua School to the core. Are you still not going to do anything? I can kill them, but I will completely vanish. You will lose control of Yuehua School's treasures. Is it really worth it?" The spiritual body asked faintly. "I don't need to control Yuehua School. Moreover, I believe in my own strength." Ling Xiao had never relied on any spiritual body before, so even if his spiritual body disappeared, it was not a big deal. To him, it was just a lost opportunity to be lazy. With this thing around, he might really become lazy. "All right, then, I'll fulfill your wish." Suddenly, an astonishing and terrifying power filled the sky. The glaring moonlight shrouded Chang Yueli, Chang Yueying, and Tantai Lingzi. "No, impossible, you can't do this. You can't kill me." Chang Yueli was scared at this time. She thought that Ling Xiao would not take the initiative to use this treasure to attack her, but now it turned out that she was wrong. The price was her life. "Can't kill you? Originally, I let you live because I thought you were still useful. Unfortunately, it seems that not only are you useless, but you will also become a big trouble. Therefore, you don't need to live." "No." Chang Yueli's body completely evaporated under the moonlight and disappeared. Chang Yueying and Tantai Lingzi's cultivation was not as good as hers, so they did not even have the chance to scream. They disappeared into the silent sky with her. As for the spiritual body, it completely disappeared after completing its mission. The Moonlight token did not shatter, but it was no longer a place for the spiritual body to reside in. Instead, it had turned into a magic treasure with pure moonlight energy. Although it did not have any attack power, it could help Ling Xiao cultivate and improve his cultivation. This thing could absorb the essence of moonlight and could be used repeatedly. Its effect was much better than spirit stones. The key was that it could be used by any cultivator. Losing a backer, but gaining a treasure, Ling Xiao was not considered to have suffered a loss. Asterisk boom. Asterisk at this time, the Moonlight treasure ship finally landed firmly on the ground, crushing dozens of trees. Fortunately, it was not destroyed by the 4 black and white robes. It could be considered a blessing in the misfortune. Demonic Fiend Sword Art. Yin Yang Ghost Claw. The moment it landed, a black illusory soared in the sky, collided with a huge claw. Then the whole mountain shook and exploded, and countless trees collapsed. This was a battle between Paradise Realm cultivators. It was terrifying. Fortunately, they were far away. Otherwise, just the aftershock of this battle would have killed countless Celestial Realm cultivators. Not to mention Transcendence Realm cultivators. Perhaps it was because of this that the Black and White Robes leader and Wu Xiang took the initiative to stay away from the battlefield. Otherwise, there was no need for others to fight. The two of them alone were enough to destroy all the mountains and trees here. This was a battle between Paradise Realm cultivators. It was like the end of the world. Ling Xiao put the Moonlight treasure ship into his storage ring and then soared into the sky, ready to cooperate with Leng Hao and Dai Yuling to eliminate the two weaker Black and White Robes cultivators. However, at this moment, the sound of something breaking through the air suddenly came from the distance. Ling Xiao frowned and looked into the distance. He found that less than 10 kilometers away, hundreds of cultivators in black and white robes were rushing over. The weakest among these people was at the early stage of the 9th layer Transcendent Realm. Nearly half of them were half-step heavenly venerables. 10 miles to martial artists with this kind of strength. That was something that could be easily traversed. I didn't expect the Storm Legion to develop so quickly. They even dare to launch such a large-scale attack. It seems that the situation is not optimistic. Leng Hao, Dai Yuling, can you still hold on? Ling Xiao wanted to use the sealing card, and it was the 9-tailed monster fox's sealing card. After all, this was a life or death battle, not a friendly spar. A moment of carelessness could lead to death. We can still hold on for 20 moves, but I don't think we can hold on. Leng Hao was honest. Chapter 691. What about you, senior sister Lan? I'm fine. Lan Yu was facing a 70% strength half-step Empyrean. Although she was at a disadvantage, she was becoming more and more proficient in using the lunar scripture. She didn't want others to help her because she felt that she could only grow after experiencing this kind of battle. Ling Xiao thought about it and decided not to release the 9-tailed fox in the end. Instead, he used the second chance to release the Demon Castle City's Great Castle Lord. Coupled with the Sword King Sec's 50% strength half-step Empyrean, it shouldn't be a problem for these two to block the enemy. Because the strongest of these enemies were only 50% strength half-step Empyrean, these two should be able to block them. Then, Ling Xiao released the 36 astral flying swords to help Leng Hao and Dai Yuling deal with the 70% strength half-step Empyrean. This was indeed a battle, but in a situation where one's life was not in danger. This kind of battle was also very beneficial to one's growth. So, the longer Leng Hao and Dai Yuling fought, the more benefits they would gain. He could multitask. While controlling the astral flying swords to fight, he also charged into the enemy group. The first to appear in front of him was a 10% strength half-step Empyrean. He was also wearing a black and white robe. Kill. Seeing Ling Xiao, this person rushed over. In any case, even if Ling Xiao didn't use the spirit mirror, his cultivation was only at the 9th layer of the Transcendent Realm, invincible. A half-step heavenly venerable naturally wouldn't fear him. Ling Xiao sneered and directly entered his 10th human dragon form. Then, the Hell Dragon's sword pierced through the air. Asterisk boom. Asterisk a huge black and gold energy. Sword instantly erupted. The black-robed man was directly pierced by the energy sword and burned to ashes by the black and gold flames. The mountain that this person was standing on was also blasted into a large crater. The leader in black and white robes was also shocked when he saw this. A huge hand of Zhen Qi stretched out from the void, wanting to slap Ling Xiao to death. However, a black sword energy pierced through the true Qi hand. With me here, you still want to divert your attention to deal with others? You're courting death. Although Wu Xiang couldn't defeat this leader immediately, He definitely wouldn't allow this person to bypass him to deal with others. Thank you, Senior Brother Wu. Ling Xiao was strong. Even if he faced a martial artist who had just entered the Heaven Realm, he would still have a chance to escape. But against a Grotto Heaven Realm martial artist, he would die without a doubt. Wu Xiang had saved his life. Since we're brothers, there's no need for thanks. After saying that, Wu Xiang once again fought with the black-robed leader. You too kill. Ling Xiao gave the order to the great castle master of Demon Castle City, who had 60% of his strength, and the Sword King Sect's inner sect elder, who had 50% of his strength. The moment these two people made a move, it was simply like an unstoppable realm. Every time they attacked, a black and white robes would die on the spot. In just a few moments, 7 or 8 black and white robes had died. However, there were simply too many people on the other side. In the end, 2 half-step Empyreans with 50% of their strength appeared to block the great castle master and the Sword King Sect's inner sect elder. For the rest of the battle, Ling Xiao could only rely on himself. In the face of such a situation, Ling Xiao did not retreat in the slightest. Yi Guxin's phantom image appeared behind him. The representative of the will of slaughter was the most suitable at this time for a battle between people. At this time, the murderous aura that Ling Xiao released was simply like a god of slaughter through and through. Shadow sword technique. Sword demon descends. 13 human-shaped sword chis charged into the crowd at the same time and began a tragic massacre. No one could block Ling Xiao's attack. After all, the half-step Empyreans with 50% of their strength had already been suppressed by the great castle master and the Sword King Sect's inner sect elder that Ling Xiao released from the seal card. At this time, the strongest of these black-robed black and white robes was only a half-step Empyrean with 30% of their strength. In the face of Ling Xiao in his 10th form, they had no resistance at all. Dragons roar. The human-shaped sword chis were still slaughtering when Ling Xiao opened his mouth and spat out a terrifying black-gold flame. Tragic cries rang out all over the mountain. Hee, it's not over yet. 9 meridians chi sword, rising sun sword light. Will of slaughter, rotting sword rain. Will of destruction, ice and snowstorm. For a moment, Ling Xiao used all the martial arts that he could use. The entire mountain turned into a purgatory. At this time, the black-robed black and white robes understood. Ling Xiao might not be as terrifying as Wu Xiang, who was in the Grotto Heaven Realm, but if no one suppressed him, he would be the most terrifying opponent. The terrifying combat power that he released was simply terrifying. In less than 15 minutes, only the 2 half-step Empyrean masters with 50% of their strength who were fighting the great castle master and the Sword King Sect's inner sect elder were left standing on the ground. Puff! In the next moment, the great castle master's turquoise water trident pierced through his opponent's head. After all, his cultivation was higher. Although it took him a little longer, he still killed his opponent. Then he turned to the other person. When that person saw that the situation was not good, he actually turned and ran. In the end, he was stabbed in the back by the Sword King Sect's inner sect elder and died on the spot. You too, go help Lung Hao and die Yuling. The situation of the battle changed because of Ling Xiao's massacre. This was something that the black-robed black and white robes clearly did not expect. They had prepared everything to ambush the enemy here, but in the end, hundreds of people had died, and they still could not kill a single one of the enemy. This was too sullen. However, the current situation was obviously extremely unfavorable for them. The enemy is too strong. Retreat. The black-robed leader was still sensible. He knew that he could not continue fighting, so he chose to retreat. Wu Xiang, Golden Light, Heavenly Master, and the others did not dare to chase and stopped. However, at this moment, a giant white bone claw suddenly stretched out from the ground and directly pinched Ling Xiao's body. Stinking brat, it's all your fault. Go to hell. The power of this giant white bone claw was terrifying. After all, Wu Xiang was inexperienced and did not have time to block it. He could only watch as Ling Xiao's body was torn apart by this giant white bone claw. Bastard! Wu Xiang was really furious at this time. During the battle just now, because he was worried that accidents would happen, he did not use his full strength. At this moment, he removed all his defenses. A demonic fiend sword Qi broke through the air and directly pierced through the Grotto Heaven realm martial artist, who sneaked up on Ling Xiao. If that person did not sneak attack, he would not have been hit. After all, his strength was there for all to see. However, after the sneak attack, he would be distracted. This distraction, coupled with Wu Xiang's full strength, caused his entire body to be completely penetrated. Go to hell! In his rage, Wu Xiang did not hold back at all. He even risked being hit by the other party's palm and completely pierced the person's head with a second sword. The terrifying demonic fiend sword Qi directly destroyed the person's spiritual sea. It was said that as long as a Grotto Heaven realm expert's soul remained, there was a possibility of resurrection. Wu Xiang wanted this person's body and soul to be completely destroyed, completely vanishing into thin air. It was enough to see how deep his friendship with Ling Xiao was. Of course, the pain was greater. After all, that was his best buddy in this life. Chapter 692. A dignified Grotto Heaven realm expert had died to Wu Xiang's sword. It wasn't that he was too weak, but that he had underestimated the brotherly love that Wu Xiang had for Ling Xiao. Sect Master, Senior Brotherling, is fine. Just as Wu Xiang was about to cut the black-robed man's body into pieces to vent his anger, he heard Leng Hao's voice. He turned around and saw that Ling Xiao was standing there, waving at him. It turned out that in the nick of time, Ling Xiao had swapped his body with the first castle lord of Demon's Citadel. The Grotto Heaven realm expert's claw had turned him into mincemeat, so it was impossible to tell who had died. Of course, this was also because Ling Xiao's powerful soul energy had allowed him to sense the other party's intentions. Otherwise, even if he could use form displacement, he wouldn't have been able to do it in such a short amount of time. Good boy, you scared me to death. Wu Xiang smashed his fist into Ling Xiao's body and laughed. Damn, Senior Brother Wu, you're a Grotto Heaven realm expert. If you weren't careful, you could have killed me. Ling Xiao was in so much pain that he grimaced. Stinking brat, enough. We can't stay here any longer. Who knows if the Yin Yang Demon King will send even stronger subordinates to deal with us. Let's return to the sect. Wu Xiang was in a good mood, but he quickly calmed down and said, Right. Ling Xiao also knew this, so he hurriedly took out the Moonlight treasure ship. Everyone boarded it and sped back to the Yuehua school. Along the way, Wu Xiang took out a storage ring that belonged to the black-robed man. This guy is really rich. There are nearly 1 million mid-grade spirit stones and a secret technique for raising and taming the yin-yang moth. I'm going to share it with everyone. Who will you choose? Wu Xiang asked. Then give me the secret technique for raising and taming the yin-yang moth. You can split the spirit stones among yourselves. Ling Xiao said. The yin-yang moth was a small creature that was very powerful. Not only was it extremely fast, but its defense was also astonishing. It was very difficult to kill. Ling Xiao had the soul manipulation secret technique. With the yin-yang moth, he could freely control it. Even if he didn't use it in battle, he could use it to scout the enemy. It was obviously more effective than the Zhanyuan ball. As for spirit stones, he could earn them, but spirit stones were something that could only be found by chance. All right, we'll do as you say. Wu Xiang nodded and handed the secret manual to Ling Xiao. After Ling Xiao received it, he began to flip through it. By the time the Moonlight treasure ship arrived at the Yuehua school, he already had a deep understanding of the secret technique. He then returned the secret technique to Wu Xiang. Brother Wu, let's leave this thing in the Yuehua school. Perhaps other people will find it useful. I have already mastered the breeding and taming methods of the yin-yang moth. Wu Xiang was a little surprised. However, When he thought of Ling Xiao's usual behavior, he understood. He didn't refuse and put away the secret manual. Then, everyone returned to their respective cave abodes. In the lavishly decorated palace, there seemed to be soft moonlight everywhere. A lazy and luxurious figure was lying on the soft bed, looking at the young man sitting cross-legged on the futon with a slight smile of appreciation. The young man sat cross-legged with his eyes closed. His hands were constantly drawing strange movements in front of his chest. His body emitted a soft golden light, and his chest rose and fell rhythmically. Gradually, a fog rose around him. This fog appeared out of thin air, but it was very dense. However, in the next moment, the mist actually dissipated into nothingness in an instant. Phew! The young man slowly exhaled a mouthful of turbid air and opened his eyes. His eyes flickered with helplessness and bitterness. Sister Moon Maiden, I have been back for 3 days, but I still can't comprehend the fog, celestial phenomenon of the 12 golden lotus arts. Ling Xiao looked at the alluring Moon Maiden on the bed and sighed. Don't be anxious. There's still some time before the martial arts festival. As long as you raise your cultivation to the half-step, heavenly venerable realm before the martial arts festival, it will be enough. As for the fog celestial phenomenon, I'm afraid it won't work. You still need some opportunities. The Moon Maiden comforted. Ling Xiao understood. However, after the 12 golden lotus arts was upgraded to a jade martial art, he hadn't had any breakthroughs. He couldn't help but be anxious. Master! The sect master wants junior brother Ling to go to the meeting hall. At this moment, Lan Yu walked in from outside. After bowing to the Moon Maiden, she looked at Ling Xiao. Could it be that the Sword King sect is attacking? Ling Xiao stood up and asked. No, it said that there are important guests. They seem to be from the Heavenly King sect. Lan Yu shook her head and said, however, their arrival might be related to the Sword King sect. Chun Nanqing is also here. Interesting. Is he going to be a lobbyist? Ling Xiao smiled and said, Sister Moon Maiden, I'll go with senior sister to take a look at the situation. I'll go with you. The Moon Maiden stood up slowly and said, There's no need. With me around, no one can bully you. The Moon Maiden said faintly. Her original charm turned cold. Obviously, Chun Nanqing and the people from the Heavenly King sect were here for nothing good. They might be here to cause trouble for Ling Xiao. The Heavenly King sect was extremely powerful. No one could guarantee that there weren't any Yin-Yang realm experts in the sect. Therefore, Wu Xiang, the sect master of the Grotto Heaven realm, couldn't control the situation. Thank you. Ling Xiao felt a trace of warmth in his heart. He knew the Moon Maiden's feelings for him. In this life, he would never let this woman down. Let's go. The Moon Maiden looked at Lan Yu and said. The three of them left the Moon Palace together and walked toward the meeting hall. Ling Xiao slowly pushed open the door of the meeting hall. In the hall, all the middle and high-level martial artists of the Yuehua school were gathered, as well as the 10 new core disciples. Sitting at the top were Sect Master Wu Xiang, the Law Enforcement Hall's first seat, Heavenly Master Golden Light, and the Inner Hall's Hall Master, Heavenly Master Heavenly Eye. These 3 people were currently the most powerful and influential people in the Yuehua school. Of course, the Moon Maiden was an exception. In the VIP seats, there were 4 people sitting in a grandiose manner. One of them was Chun Nanqing. Ling Xiao knew him. The other 3 were very unfamiliar, but their robes were embroidered with a special symbol. It was a pagoda. It was rumored that the founder of the Heavenly King sect was one of the experts in the ancient times. His strength was on par with the Moonlight Maiden. His martial soul was a pagoda that could suppress everything. Therefore, he was known as the Pagoda Heavenly King. When Ling Xiao saw these 3 people, he could not help being startled inwardly. The strength of these 3 people was actually even more terrifying than Chun Nanqing. In other words, they were Grotto Heaven realm experts, and they were even stronger than Chun Nanqing. Although the other person was a little weaker, he was still a half-step heavenly master with 90% of his strength. He was only a step away from the celestial realm, and this person's age couldn't be more than 20 years old. This person was dressed in men's clothes, but it couldn't hide his beautiful face and figure. Others might not be able to see through it, but Ling Xiao could clearly see the person's true gender. Chapter 693. A half-step celestial master with 90% of her strength. What's more, she's a girl disguised as a man. If this is the result of normal cultivation, then she's really a genius. Ling Xiao's gaze lingered on the girl's face for a while. It was not because of her beauty, but because of her amazing talent. There were many geniuses these days, but it was rare to see such a talented person. It was said that 2 of the 6 young masters of the sacred dynasty were girls. Young master was just a title. Could this girl be one of them? Are you the Holy Sun? I didn't expect the Holy Sun to be such a beautiful girl. Ling Xiao suddenly asked. Hearing this, the girl was obviously shocked, but she recovered in an instant. Of course, it was only on the surface. Deep down, she was still in a state of shock. Since the day she was born, she had been raised as a boy. Since then, she had been disguised as a man, and no one had ever seen through her. Most people only felt that her appearance and temperament were more beautiful than a woman's, but they couldn't guess that she was a woman. That was because she cultivated a special martial art that could change her voice and even create the illusion of an Adam's apple. However, this young man in front of her had actually pointed out her identity and gender in one go. Oh, I'm sorry. You must have your own reasons for disguising yourself as a man. I've said too much. Before the Holy Sun could say anything, Ling Xiao shook his head with a smile. He then looked at Wu Xiang and the others and cupped his hands. Greetings, sect leader and elders. Junior brotherling, please take a seat. Wu Xiang looked serious. Although he did not know why the people of the Heavenly King sect were here, his intuition told him that things were not as simple as they seemed. Therefore, he was still a little worried. Ling Xiao nodded, then turned around to sit down. Unexpectedly, just as he approached the chair before his buttocks could even sit on it, a gust of wind suddenly came from a palm, and the chair was actually smashed into pieces. What is the meaning of this, sect leader Qin? Wu Xiang asked coldly. It was Chan Nanqing who had smashed the chair. Humph, sect leader Wu. Don't you know that sinners only have the right to kneel and not sit? Chan Nanqing snorted coldly. As soon as he said this, the middle and high-ranking martial artists of the Yuehua school immediately started whispering to each other. Many of them looked at Ling Xiao with a hint of schadenfreude and a hint of blame. It was as if they felt that Ling Xiao had provoked an enemy that he should not have provoked. These people were basically the senior management of old. They had always been cowardly and had low self-esteem. They were always timid and cowardly when doing things. They did not like people like Ling Xiao. On the other hand, some people were unhappy with Qin Nanqing. This was the Yuehua school. Even if he was the leader of the Sword King sect, he shouldn't be causing trouble here. Most of these people were newly promoted middle and upper management. They had a new mentality and would not bow and scrape in front of outsiders. This was to be expected. Wu Xiang had just become the sect leader, and it was impossible for the Yuehua school to unite against the outside world in such a short time. After all, he had been kneeling for so long, it would take some time for him to stand up. The confidence of a sect needed time and achievements to accumulate. Slap. This was the crisp sound of a slap in the face. The person who slapped him was the Moon Lady. The person who was slapped was Qin Nanqing. How dare you? Who are you calling a sinner? The Moon Lady's cold voice sounded. Then, she pulled Ling Xiao's hand and sat down beside her. Qin Nanqing touched his burning cheek. The corners of his mouth twitched a few times, but he did not dare to say anything in the end. In the face of the Moon Lady, who was stronger than him, he did not even dare to fart. Thank you, Sister Moon Lady, for standing up for me. Ling Xiao smiled and said, You can stand up for me when you are stronger. the Moon Lady said with a smile. Of course. After Ling Xiao finished speaking, he looked at Chen Nanqing and the others. If he guessed correctly, Chen Nanqing wanted to use the power of the Sword King sect and the Sacred Dynasty to show his power to the Yuehua school and get rid of him. Humph. An old man with a white beard among the Sword King sect's Grotto Heaven realm experts snorted coldly. He looked at Wu Xiang and said, I have long heard that the Yuehua school is overbearing and arrogant. Seeing it today, it is indeed true. What do you mean, old sir? Is Chen Nanqing allowed to behave atrociously in the Yuehua school, but we can't do anything to him? Wu Xiang frowned and said coldly, We welcome the experts of the Sword King sect to visit the Yuehua school. However, if someone wants to cause trouble, the Yuehua school will not be afraid even if it is the King of Heaven, let alone the Sword King sect. This reply that was neither servile nor overbearing made the people of the Sword King sect lose face. Bastard, do you know who you are talking to? The old man with the white beard shouted angrily. You are the bastard. You are just an elder of the Sword King sect. How dare you be so arrogant in front of me? Is this the etiquette of the Sword King sect? If it were Chang Yueying, she would probably bow and scrape before this old man and tremble in fear. However, Wu Xiang did not fall for this. You are wrong, Overlord Wu. The Holy Sun got up slowly and said with a smile, Although the 12 sects are on par with each other in name, there is a clear distinction between them. There is no doubt that the Sword King sect is the leader of the 12 sects. As an elder of the Sword King sect, I have the right to speak with the overlord of the Yuehua school. Then, who do you think you are? Do you have the right to speak here? Wu Xiang asked coldly. The Holy Sun was taken aback for a moment and then blushed. However, the blush disappeared quickly. Although this woman was young, she was able to calm down in an instant. I am the Holy Sun of the Sacred Dynasty. Of course, I have the right, the Holy Sun said lightly. When Ling Xiao said that this person was the Holy Sun, the people of the Yuehua school didn't quite understand what this Holy Sun meant. Now that they heard this person introduce himself, they finally understood that this person was the Holy Sun of the Sacred Dynasty and the candidate to be the next Holy Emperor. Whoosh! In the entire hall except for Wu Xiang, the Moon Lady, and Ling Xiao, the rest of the people got down on their knees. Greetings to the Holy Sun, Qian Sui. Qian Sui. The Holy Sun smiled. He was very satisfied with this scene. He didn't need to do anything to make others bow to him. It was a good feeling. However, when he saw Ling Xiao, he frowned. Wu Xiang and the Moon Lady were stronger than him. It was fine if they didn't kneel, but what right did this Ling Xiao have? Why aren't you kneeling when you see the Holy Sun? The Holy Sun asked coldly. What a joke. When the Blue Eyes clan and the ninjas joined forces to attack Baiyun province, where were you, the Holy Sun? When Baiyun province was flooded with dream pills, where were you, the Holy Sun? Now you want me to kneel? Do you think you are worthy? Even if Ling Xiao had to kneel to Lin Zhe, he would not kneel to this so-called saint. Good. Very good. Let's see if you can still be so arrogant when we arrive at the Heavenly King's gate. The Holy Sun trembled with anger. He had seen arrogant people before, but this was the first time he had seen someone as arrogant as Ling Xiao. After a long time, she calmed down and said to Wu Xiang, Wu Xiang, listen to me. Ling Xiao massacred the disciples of the Sword King sect during the Tri-Faction tournament. He has committed a serious crime against the Sacred Dynasty. I am here to bring him to the Heavenly King's gate for interrogation. Chapter 694. Crack! The silver cup in Wu Xiang's hand was crushed into powder. Leihe had a bad feeling about this, but he had never expected that the Sacred Dynasty and the Heavenly King sect would intervene in this matter. The atmosphere in the hall was a little tense. None of the Yuehua school's upper echelons, who were kneeling on the ground, dared to say anything. This was the might of the Sacred Dynasty. Although the sacred dynasty was on the brink of collapse and suffering many disasters, it was still a noble and irresistible existence in the eyes of most citizens of the sacred dynasty. What should we do? Ling Xiao has actually provoked the holy son of the sacred dynasty. Yang Danlin panicked and hurriedly sent a voice transmission to the Yuan Venerate. Why are you panicking? What's wrong with the sacred dynasty? Does the sacred dynasty allow people to be lawless? Even the sacred dynasty at its peak couldn't act so recklessly, let alone the current sacred dynasty. What's there to be afraid of? Cheer up and don't embarrass me. The Yuan Venerate scolded. That's easy for you to say. The sacred dynasty has ruled the Sky Dragon continent for more than 100,000 years. Even if I wanted to, I wouldn't be able to change my deep-rooted mindset in such a short time. Yang Danlin smiled bitterly. He really wanted to help Ling Xiao, but he couldn't do anything now that things had come to this. Among the core disciples, there were some who were secretly gloating. Ling Xiao's existence was a threat to them. If Ling Xiao was taken away just like that, they reckoned that they would be able to make a name for themselves. Regardless of whether this was right or wrong, this was what they thought anyway. Sect Master Wu, I know you will be angry. However, Ling Xiao has committed such a heinous crime. You wouldn't sacrifice the entire Yuehua school for him, right? The Holy Sun sneered at Wu Xiang. Wu Xiang clenched his fists tightly as black true essence enveloped his body. A demonic figure appeared behind him. He wore a pitch-black cloak and looked extremely cold. Seeing Wu Xiang's reaction, Chen Nanqing and the others became nervous. The white-bearded elder of the Celestial King sect even stood in front of the Holy Sun, fearing that Wu Xiang would attack in a fit of rage. Behind him, an illusory figure appeared as well. It was a golden-armored elite with a long spear in his hand, looking awe-inspiring. It was said that the pagoda-bearing Heavenly King had 100,000 golden armor soldiers under his command. This old man's martial soul should be that of a general in the golden armor army. As their auras burst out, the pressure in the hall multiplied. Those who were weaker all felt their faces turn pale, and it became difficult for them to breathe. It was as if a ball of cotton was stuck in their chests, and it was very uncomfortable. Sect leader, please stop. Do you want the Yuehua school to be destroyed in your hands? At this moment, more than 10 inner court elders began to berate loudly. Other than Heavenly Lord Goldenlight, Wang Han, Tenzuin, Yang Danlin, and a few others, the rest were prepared to stop Wu Xiang and the Heavenly King sect from taking action. Humph. If a sect can't even protect its own disciples, what's the point of having it? It might as well be destroyed. Wu Xiang snorted coldly. Not only did he have no intention of stopping, but his aura became even more terrifying. Sect leader Wu, is it really worth it for you to do this for a mere Ling Xiao? The Holy Sun smiled faintly. Ling Xiao is just a 9th-level transcendent realm, invincible realm cultivator. He's nothing. I have something here that I can bestow upon your Yuehua school. I can guarantee that your Yuehua school will have a peerless genius under the age of 20 within a short period of time. As she spoke, she waved her hand, and a simple and elegant wooden box appeared in her hand. Although it was made of wood, it was more valuable than gold. This wood was even more precious than gold and silver. Furthermore, the carving was definitely the work of a master. There was even an array inscription on it. Putting everything else aside, this box alone was a very good treasure. Under everyone's gaze, the Holy Sun carefully opened the box. In an instant, a strange fragrance filled the hall. Just a whiff of the fragrance was enough to make people feel refreshed, as if they had taken some kind of tonic. Stand up. Don't keep kneeling. The Holy Sun was very satisfied to see the surprise and envy on the faces of those kneeling on the ground. Everyone stood up, and they could see the contents of the box more clearly. It was a purple-red pill about the size of a cherry. Lying quietly in the box, it emitted a soft purple-red light. The alluring fragrance was coming from it. As the hall master of the medicine hall, Yang Danlin naturally knew more about medicines than anyone else, so he was the first to exclaim, "Divine treasure body tempering pill." The martial artists on the Sky Dragon continent were very clear that a person's martial arts cultivation was related to their innate talent. Although the martial soul also determined the upper limit of a person's achievements, the martial soul could be inherited, but the innate talent was very difficult to change. Unless there was some kind of elixir. The Divine Treasure Body Tempering Pill was one of the many kinds of elixirs. After taking it, any martial artist talent would become a divine treasure body. What this meant was very clear to all the martial artists present. The Divine Treasure Body Tempering Pill could only be refined by an excellent alchemist, and its quality was at the middle yellow level. Even Yang Danlin would not be able to concoct a pill of this grade. The highest grade he could concoct was a low-grade yellow grade pill. Therefore, alchemists at his level were also called low yellow level alchemists or low yellow level alchemists. The classification of alchemists was also based on the best elixir they could refine. Alchemists who could refine the Divine Treasure Body Tempering Pill were at least at the middle yellow level, which was better than the best alchemists in the Yuehua school. Therefore, this kind of elixir was definitely a treasure for the Yuehua school. In the hall, after hearing Yang Danlin's introduction, other than a few core disciples who had a good relationship with Ling Shao, the rest of the disciples revealed a fervent look, as if they could not wait to swallow the elixir on the spot. Gulp! Some of them could even hear the sound of saliva being swallowed. The attractiveness of this thing was simply too great, to the point that it made people go crazy. Haha! This is the middle yellow level elixir refined by Lord Sun Shang, the imperial physician of the sacred dynasty. I'm sure everyone here has heard of Lord Sun Shang's name, right? The Holy Sun smiled. She seemed to enjoy the way the Yuehua school's people were so excited that they lost their composure. Her laughter was full of pride and arrogance. Other than the Holy Sun of the sacred dynasty, only the Holy Emperor himself could ask an imperial physician to refine elixirs. The rest, including the princes, were not qualified to do so. It's the work of Lord Sun Shang. No wonder it's so extraordinary. There were many people in the Yuehua school who knew Sun Shang's name. This was because Sun Shang was the best alchemist on the Sky Dragon continent. He came from the Heavenly King sect and specialized in refining elixirs for the Holy Emperor and the Holy Sun. Countless strong people tried to curry favor with him, but they all failed. If it were not for the Holy Sun's identity, it would be impossible to get Sun Shang's elixirs. Chapter 695. Ling Shao looked at the divine treasure body quenching elixir. It was a perfect elixir. It was obvious that Sun Shang was not an ordinary person. His alchemy skills were much better than Yang Danlin's. No wonder he was the best alchemist on the Sky Dragon continent. The pills refined by this person were several times more expensive than the pills refined by others of the same grade. This was because their effects were better and their power was stronger. The higher-ups of the Yuehua sect looked at the divine treasure body, quenching elixir, and sighed in their hearts. With this elixir, they would definitely be able to create a peerless genius. They might even be able to perform well in the martial arts festival and enter the top 100, no, the top 50. The Holy Sun closed the box slowly as the higher-ups looked at her expectantly. What do you think? As long as you hand Ling Shao over to us, this elixir will belong to the Yuehua school. Not only that, I will also give you 100,000 medium-grade spiritual stones and a set of jade-grade entry-level martial arts. The Holy Sun looked at the crowd with a smile. She was sure that she had the Yuehua school under her control. She did not believe that Wu Xiang could resist this temptation. Before they came, they had already done their research. Ling Shao and Wu Xiang were just fellow disciples. They might have a good relationship, but they were not relatives. They were not related by blood. She did not believe that Wu Xiang would be willing to risk his life for Ling Shao. While the Holy Sun was waiting for Wu Xiang's reply, Wu Xiang's voice came as expected. Put away your broken elixir and get out of here. The Yuehua school is not as good as the King of Heaven sect, but we are not puppets that can be manipulated by anyone. I'm not doing anything now because I'm giving face to the sacred dynasty. But if you don't know what's good for you, don't blame us for being rude. Wu Xiang did not make a move because he did not want to ruin his relationship with the sacred dynasty and the King of Heaven sect. He wasn't afraid of offending the Sword King sect, but it would be troublesome if he offended the sacred dynasty. At the very least, Yuehua school couldn't fight against the sacred dynasty with his current strength. No matter how weak the sacred dynasty was, there would still be people who would respond to their orders. When the time came, Yuehua school might have to face the combined attack of 11 sections. The chances of winning were too low. However, if the other party did not know what was good for them, he would still risk his life to challenge the 11-sect alliance. The soft were afraid of the hard, and the hard were afraid of those who didn't care about their lives. This was the reality. If he cowered even a little, not only would Ling Xiao die, but Lan Yu, Dai Yuling, and Leng Hao, who had followed Ling Xiao to wreak havoc in the beast-fighting arena, would also die. These people were the hope of the Yuehua sect's rise. If they were all dead, the Yuehua sect would only exist in name. Therefore, he could not be a coward. He absolutely could not be a coward. Your Highness, the Holy Sun, did you hear our sect leader's words? Take back your things and leave Yuehua school quickly. Our Yuehua school is no longer a sect that can be bullied. Ling Xiao said lightly. Ling Xiao, you have made a mistake. You can't drag Yuehua school down with you. Heavenly Eyes said coldly. The Holy Sun is very noble. We can't be enemies with him. You have to bear the consequences of your own mistakes. Yes, Ling Xiao, don't drag Yuehua school into everything. This has nothing to do with Yuehua school. It's your problem. A deacon in the inner sect hall echoed. What a joke. If you were the one being blamed today, would you obediently follow them to their deaths? Ling Xiao looked coldly at Heavenly Eyes and the deacon. You have lived for so long in vain. Do you really think that they are targeting me today? Don't forget that I, Ling Xiao, am now ranked first among the top 10 core disciples. I am the young sect leader of Yuehua school. My status is equal to that of an inner sect elder. Are you cowards going to watch others behave atrociously in Yuehua school? You. Heavenly Eyes and the deacon were stunned when they heard Ling Xiao's words. Heavenly Eyes' vertical eye was cold, and his aura gradually became stronger. Heavenly Eyes, what are you trying to do? Is Ling Xiao wrong? You can betray your own people just because you are weak? Since when did Yuehua school have such a rule? Do you want to follow in the footsteps of Chang Yueli and Chang Yueying? The one who spoke was the Moon Lady. Her voice was cold and light. It sounded pleasant, but there was a great pressure that made people not dare to resist or talk back. Heavenly Eyes' aura instantly dissipated when he heard the Moon Lady's words. He helplessly took a deep breath, then closed his eyes and stopped talking. With the Moon Lady protecting Ling Xiao, he didn't dare to do anything rash. Ling Xiao turned to the Moon Lady and nodded with a smile. Then he looked at the Holy Sun and asked calmly, Your Highness, may I ask if today's matter is an imperial edict issued by the Holy Emperor of the Sacred Dynasty, or the sect leader of the Heavenly King sect? His voice was calm and indifferent. Today's matter was strange. He didn't believe that the Holy Emperor and the sect leader of the Heavenly King sect would side with the Sword King sect. The Holy Sun was stunned for a moment. He didn't expect Ling Xiao to ask such a special question. She said calmly, The Holy Emperor and the sect leader of the Heavenly King sect didn't issue an imperial edict. However, I am the Holy Sun of the Sacred Dynasty. Don't I have the right to uphold justice for the Sword King sect? Humph! Without an imperial edict or an imperial edict from the sect leader of the Heavenly King sect, what are you relying on? How dare you come to Yuehua school, one of the 12 sects? Could it be that the Yuehua school has been quiet for too long? Do you really think you can control it at will? Ling Xiao suddenly snorted and said, Your Highness, Holy Sun, listen carefully. The 12 sects are not under the jurisdiction of the sacred dynasty. On the contrary, the sacred dynasty has been able to survive for so many years on the Sky Dragon continent because of the 12 sects. Otherwise, do you think you can still be so arrogant here? Even the Holy Emperor has to kneel before the sect leader of the Yuehua school. Who do you think you are? You are just the Holy Sun. You haven't even become the Holy Emperor. How dare you be so arrogant? Do you think you are more powerful than the Holy Emperor? Or are you ready to usurp the throne? With such a heavy burden on the Holy Sun's head, she was completely unable to breathe. In the strict imperial family, even if she was the Holy Sun, once she had the ambition to usurp the throne, she could be beheaded for the crime of seizing power. You're talking nonsense. The Holy Sun finally lost her composure. After all, she was only a 16-year-old girl. No matter how calm and mature she was still a little immature. However, after the scolding, the Holy Sun found that she could not find any words to refute. Because Ling Xiao was right. The 12 sects were completely superior to the broken sacred dynasty on the Sky Dragon continent. The Holy Emperor had to kneel before any of the 12 sects' sect leaders. Because she could not find a reason. She could only make up her mind and become even tougher. Ling Xiao, you just don't dare to admit your guilt. You are just afraid of death. Don't talk nonsense. Don't worry, when you arrive at the Heavenly King sect, I will plead for you. I can even let you join the Heavenly King sect. Then there will be no problem. Chapter 696. Join the Heavenly King faction? Your Highness, Holy Sun, this is not what we agreed on. Chen Nanqing was anxious. Shut up. As long as Ling Xiao is willing to join the Heavenly King faction and become my servant, he can be pardoned from any crime. The Holy Sun shouted sternly. Wu Xiang dared to contradict the Holy Sun. Ling Xiao dared to do the same. But Chen Nanqing dared not. Hearing the Holy Sun's words, some core disciples of the Yuehua school were tempted. The Heavenly King faction was the most powerful among the 12 sects. Joining the Heavenly King faction was like a carp leaping over the dragon's gate. As for becoming the Holy Sun's servant, they were even more eager. They could even kneel down and lick his boots, let alone become his servant. What was the point? The Holy Sun's servant would become a powerful figure in the sacred dynasty in the future. What kind of martial arts couldn't they get? What kind of resources couldn't they get? It would also be a great help to their cultivation. After finishing his words, the Holy Sun slightly raised his beautiful and white chin and looked at Ling Xiao proudly like a peacock, waiting for Ling Xiao's answer. In her opinion, such an offer was enough to make any disciple of the sacred dynasty, especially the male disciples, go crazy. However, while dreams were plentiful, reality was bony. Ling Xiao's reaction was completely different from what the Holy Sun had expected. He didn't show any hesitation, nor did he look happy. Instead, his eyes were full of killing intent and anger. Ling Xiao had been a beggar for a long time. He had seen many rich girls like the Holy Sun who didn't treat beggars as human beings. He hated this kind of expression very much. It destroyed the last bit of self-esteem of beggars. Ling Yu was a typical example. Now, the Holy Sun's arrogance and rudeness were 10 times worse than Ling Yu's. Servant, even if I, Ling Xiao, go back to being a beggar, I will not be a slave. Let alone the Holy Sun. Even the Holy Emperor wouldn't be able to do it. What are you trying to do? The Holy Sun was startled by Ling Xiao's expression and took a step back subconsciously. Another Heavenly King Gate expert stood in front of the Holy Sun and stared coldly at Ling Xiao. If Ling Xiao dared to act recklessly, he would kill Ling Xiao mercilessly. Are you very noble? They were just relying on the power and influence that their ancestors had obtained. Are you great? The Great One is your ancestor, Ji Xinyuan, not you. Are you very powerful? A half-step Empyrean with 90% strength, the head of the 6 young masters of the sacred dynasty. You might be proud of yourself. But I can tell you that in this year's martial arts festival, I will personally defeat you. You want me to be your slave? To be honest, I really want to kill you. Only then will I be able to appease the anger in my heart. Kill her, I'll take responsibility. The Moon Maiden said calmly. She was like a fairy who didn't care about the mortal world. But she had a special liking for Ling Xiao. The saint's face was filled with terror. She regretted it very much now. If she had known, she would have asked her master, the head of the Heavenly King Gate, to come in person. If the Moon Maiden wanted to attack now, she believed that the 2 Heavenly King Gate experts in front of her wouldn't be able to stop her. Ling Xiao looked back at the Moon Maiden and said with a smile, Sister Moon Maiden, you're the best to me. You let me be so willful. The Moon Maiden's cheeks blushed. Ling Xiao thought to himself, how can I let you be in danger when you treat me so well? He knew very well that with the Moon Maiden in charge today, he would have no problem killing the Holy Sun. But after doing this, the Moon Maiden would definitely become the common enemy of the sacred dynasty and the Heavenly King Gate. He believed that there were masters of the Yinyang realm in the Heavenly King Gate and the sacred dynasty. The Moon Maiden was not invincible. He couldn't let anything happen to her. He looked at the Holy Sun again and said disdainfully, don't be afraid. I'll defeat you fair and square in the martial arts festival. I won't kill you here. Hearing this, the Holy Sun and the 2 Heavenly King Gate experts breathed a sigh of relief. However, they felt a chill in their hearts. This guy is obviously angry and unwilling, but he can deal with this problem calmly. It's too scary. This kind of person is the most difficult to deal with. No wonder Chen Nanqing asked the Holy Sun to deal with this matter at the cost of the Sword King Sutra. This guy can't be allowed to live. He's too dangerous. The Holy Sun took a deep breath and said, I've underestimated you. No wonder Jianwuji is afraid of you. But do you know that although my master and father didn't issue a decree, they gave me a verbal order? That is to say, they don't dare to offend the Yuehua school fair and square? Ling Xiao's point of view was always different from the others. The saint frowned and said, You can think of it that way, but this matter needs to be solved. You killed so many people from the Sword King sect. It's impossible for this matter to be left unsettled. Since Sect Master Chen came to me, then I must solve this problem. But I can give you a chance. A chance? Ling Xiao looked at the Holy Sun with a faint smile. That's right. You can challenge me in this martial arts festival. If I lose, I won't interfere in this matter anymore. If you lose, you will be interrogated by the Heavenly King Gate. Do you dare to accept? The Holy Sun said lightly. At this time, she seemed to have calmed down. Haha, this woman is really scheming. If I lose, I won't go back on my words. I will be interrogated by the Heavenly King Gate and the Sword King Gate in public. At that time, my reputation will be tarnished. Even if I live, I will be cursed for the rest of my life. Ling Xiao cursed in his heart and showed a sarcastic expression on his face. Chen Nanqing surprisingly didn't object to the Holy Sun's proposal. In his opinion, Ling Xiao couldn't have the strength to defeat the Holy Sun in such a short time. Therefore, although there were 2 outcomes, there was only one. As long as Ling Xiao agreed, he would not be able to escape the fate of being interrogated, and he would be interrogated in front of the 12 sects of the sacred dynasty. What do you think, Ling Xiao? You think too highly of yourself. Do you dare to accept? The Holy Sun looked at Ling Xiao contemptuously and asked, Haha! Ling Xiao suddenly threw his head back and roared with laughter. Then he glared at the Holy Prince and shouted, Your Highness, you don't need to be so overbearing. The only reason you gave me such conditions is because you think that I, Ling Xiao, will never be able to defeat you, the leader of the 6 young masters of the Holy Dynasty. You are the #1 master under the age of 20 in the Tianlong continent. To put it bluntly, you have a good master, a good martial spirit, a better foundation than me, and started earlier than me. Other than that, you are not qualified to compete with me. The Heavenly King Gate is very strong. You are also very strong. But I'm afraid you don't know that I was just a good-for-nothing at the first level of the martial vein realm a year ago. I can cultivate to this level in a year, and there are still dozens of days before the martial arts festival. Why do you think I can't surpass you? Can't defeat you? If you can do it, I can do it too, and I will do it better than you. Chapter 697. Ling Zhao's voice reverberated throughout the hall, so loud that even the deaf could hear it. Many people suddenly remembered that the Holy Son had undergone strict training since birth and had always been soaked in top-quality medicine prepared by the imperial physician. But what about Ling Xiao? 1 year. From a nobody Ling Xiao to a famous figure in the 3 great sects of the East, it had only been 1 year. He was only 15 years old now. The Holy Son's lips twitched a few times, but he didn't know how to refute Ling Xiao, because what Ling Xiao said was true. If he could make such terrifying progress in 1 year, who could guarantee that he wouldn't advance by leaps and bounds in the next few days? Thinking of this, the Holy Son felt a chill run down his spine. Your Highness, Holy Son, for the sake of the human king, I'll give you a word of advice. Don't judge a book by its cover. Don't be a frog at the bottom of a well. Ling Xiao sneered and said, Your eyesight, forgive me for saying, is too lousy. The Holy Son was so angry that his face turned red and he ground his teeth. How could he bear such criticism? Since birth, she had been a pearl in the hands of others, not to mention her peers. Even her elders didn't dare to criticize her like this. Perhaps because of this, she had developed an arrogant and domineering personality. He couldn't stand Ling Zhao's words and almost roared out, You're just a trivial 9th order transcendent realm cultivator. What right do you have to lecture me? Who do you think you are? What right do you have to talk to me like this? I'm a frog at the bottom of a well. Then you're an idiot. Idiot. You think you can surpass me? Good. Very good. Before the martial arts ceremony, no one will come to trouble you. You'd better live well for this queen. On the day of the martial arts ceremony, I want to see how you're going to show off in front of this queen. If this queen really loses to you, I'll be your foot-washing maid. Even your cow. You can do whatever you want with me. But if you lose, don't blame this queen for being ruthless. When the time comes, I will use the cruelest punishment to interrogate you. Hee. You're not qualified to be my foot-washing maid. Ling Xiao smiled faintly, then looked at Wu Xiang and said, Senior brother Wu, today's matter should be considered settled. I, your junior brother, am going to cultivate. After he finished speaking, he turned around and walked out of the hall without the slightest reluctance. The Moon Maiden followed behind him like a gentle fairy, as well as a protective goddess. Everyone, the matter has already been resolved. Could it be that you still want me to keep you for a meal? Wu Xiang looked coldly at Chen Nanqing and the 3 people from the Heavenly King sect. If he had the strength, if he was stronger, there would be no need for Ling Xiao to carry such a heavy burden alone. His voice was ice-cold, and his hands were trembling non-stop. It was obvious that he was on the verge of exploding. Let's go. The Holy Son flicked his sleeves. He had really come in high spirits, only to return in disappointment. He had confidently said that he could solve this matter for Chen Nanqing. It was just taking away a core disciple of the Yuehua school. What was the big deal? But in the end, he was almost driven away. One day, I will destroy the Yuehua school with my own hands. After leaving the Yuehua school for more than 10 miles, the hatred in the Holy Son's eyes intensified. After returning to the Moon Maiden's bedroom, Ling Zhao's brows were tightly knitted. Sister Moon Maiden, thank you so much for what you did today. But I can't always rely on you to protect me. Now that I have such an agreement with the Holy Son, I have to speed up my breakthrough. Ling Xiao suddenly said, In the eastern region, other than the sect market of the three sects? Are there any other larger markets? Why do you ask? The Moon Maiden asked, puzzled. I brought a lot of good stuff from the Moonlight Pagoda last time. I have been wanting to concoct a kind of spirit liquid, but I have been delayed by many things. Since it is difficult for me to make a breakthrough in my cultivation and the 12 golden lotus arts is stagnant, I have to find another way. This spirit liquid is the best choice. Ling Xiao answered. I know, but what does this have to do with the market? The Moon Maiden was still puzzled. To concoct this spirit liquid, you will need several very expensive herbs. Our sect market doesn't have them, and it will be a waste of time to look for them now. So buying them is the best choice. Ling Xiao answered. These herbs can only be bought in a large market. Otherwise, it will be a wasted trip. Tell me what you need first. The Moon Maiden asked. At least 10,000-year-old golden-leafed wolf's tail grass, 5 mist flowers that are at least 500 years old, and the last thing, which is also the most difficult thing to get, is the inner core of a king of dire beasts. Ling Xiao said after thinking for a while. Hearing this, the Moon Maiden was dumbfounded. You really dare to ask for it? Not to mention the others. Just the 10,000-year-old golden-leafed wolf's tail grass will cost at least 100,000 low-grade spirit stones. And the inner core of the sea serpent beast is even more terrifying. I estimate that you won't be able to get it without 1,000,000 low-grade spirit stones. Where will you get so many spirit stones? I don't lack spirit stones. What I lack now is materials. As long as there is a market nearby where I can buy these things, all my problems will be solved. Ling Xiao had been wandering outside for the past few days and had obtained quite a number of spiritual stones. His low-grade spiritual stones added up to more than 10 million. Buying these things was not a problem at all. Good. Since you don't lack money, this matter will be easy to handle. About 300 li from here is the capital of Northern Han. That place possesses the largest market square in the eastern and southern regions. Of the 12 sects, disciples of 6 sects frequently go there to conduct business. The Moon Maiden said with a smile, apart from the Beast King Palace, the Sword King sect, and our Yuehua school, what are the other 3 sects? Ling Xiao asked. They are the 3 sects in the southern region of the Sacred Dynasty, the Gu King sect, the Poison King sect, and the Tang sect. The Moon Maiden replied, originally, these 3 sects were one sect. Later, they split and became 3 sections. They are respectively good at using goo, poison, and concealed weapons. Many of the concealed weapons used by our Yuehua school were purchased from the Tang sect. I really don't know. Ling Xiao smiled bitterly. The 3 sects in the southern region and the 3 sects in the eastern region were relatively close. As the head of the top 10 core disciples of the Yuehua school, Ling Xiao actually didn't know. It was quite embarrassing to say that. So are you going or not? Of course I'm going, as long as I can successfully concoct the spiritual liquid. I am absolutely certain that I can break through to the half-step celestial master realm. Moreover, I can also make a breakthrough in the 12 golden lotus arts. Ling Xiao nodded repeatedly. Okay, there's no time to lose. You go back and pack up first. I also need to pack up here. Inform Wuxiang, and we can set off. The Moon Maiden stood up and said, No way, Sister Yuenu, are you going with me? Ling Xiao asked doubtfully. Of course. You are now the most important person to protect. If you die, who will protect me in the future? The Moon Maiden smiled, revealing a bright smile. Chapter 698. After returning to his cave abode, Ling Xiao tidied up a little and changed into a cleaner set of casual clothes. Then he went to the bottom of the Moonlight Pagoda to wait for the Moon Maiden. He didn't expect the Moon Maiden to arrive first. The Moon Maiden had also changed into a very decent set of clothes. The moonlight-colored long dress made the Moon Maiden look even more noble and elegant. It was as if she had really become an otherworldly fairy. Every frown and smile of hers was mesmerizing. However, such a moon maiden looked like a lively teenage girl in front of Ling Xiao. She was full of youthful energy. "What are you looking at?" Seeing Ling Xiao staring at her, the moon maiden chided him. "Tisk tsk, big sister moon maiden, your outfit today is really beautiful. Did you specially prepare it because you want to go out with me?" Ling Xiao teased. "That's right. It's rare for you to go out with me." "Of course. I have to dress up properly so that I won't embarrass you." The moon maiden revealed a playful smile and stuck her tongue out at Ling Xiao. Speaking of which, although the moon maiden had lived for a long time, she had been hibernating for a long time. In fact, her mental age was not much different from Ling Xiao's. It was normal for her to be so lively and playful. Ling Xiao was taken aback. He was a little surprised. Then he was in a good mood. It seemed like his efforts during this period of time were not in vain. Although the moon maiden was usually cold, he had finally gained something. He went forward and grabbed the moon maiden's soft and fair hand. Then he walked out of the sect openly. The moon maiden's body trembled violently at first, but she quickly got used to the situation. Other than the blush on her face, there was nothing wrong with her. Along the way, they naturally met some people from the sect. When they saw Ling Xiao and the moon maiden holding hands so intimately, they were so shocked that their jaws almost dropped. There was no doubt that the moon maiden was the most beautiful in the entire Yuehua school. Needless to say, there was probably no one in the 12 sects who could match him. She was such a blessed girl, and she usually lived in seclusion and was quite cold. There were very few people who could talk to her. However, not only was Ling Xiao able to talk to her, he was even talking and laughing with her. How could this not be surprising? Ling Xiao greeted the people from the sect he met along the way. When he introduced the moon maiden, he directly called her Big Sister Moon Maiden. He was not as reserved as he was when they first met. After exiting the mountain, the two soared into the sky, flying in the direction of Northern Han's capital. Moon Lady was a yin-yang realm expert, so flying wasn't a problem for her. Ling Xiao possessed the golden dragon wings. In addition, it wouldn't be a problem for him to fly for about 20 minutes. It would be very easy for him to reach the capital of Northern Han. When the two were about 3 to 5 li outside of the capital of Northern Han, they descended from the sky. Afterwards, using Qinggong, they hurried into the city. After all, martial artists who could fly were as rare as phoenix feathers and qilin horns. In all of Northern Han, and even on the Tianlong continent, there were only a few who could fly. It would be too conspicuous to fly. After entering the city, the two headed straight for the market. Moon Maiden had clearly been to this place before. As a result, she was very familiar with the situation here. Northern Han's capital was worthy of being the largest city in the eastern and southern regions of the Sacred Dynasty. As a result, it was naturally very popular. It was currently the beginning of spring, and it was still chilly. It was reasonable to say that there shouldn't be many people on the streets. However, in reality, the streets and alleys were packed with people. It could even be said that there was a surging tide of people. Apart from the humans of the Sacred Dynasty, the blue-eyed race, the ninja race, and the barbarian race, one could also see a few strange races from other continents. There were even some strange transportation tools. It was a dazzling lineup that was too much for the eye to take in. The Moon Lady seemed to have become the most innocent little girl by Ling Xiao's side. She was curious about everything. When she saw candied haws, amber candy, cotton candy, and other sweets, she actually pestered Ling Xiao to buy them to eat. These ordinary sweets were completely worthless. All she spent was gold and silver. Ling Xiao had plenty of these. As a result, he bought her whatever she wanted. Occasionally, the Moon Maiden would let out excited and lively laughter. This caused Ling Xiao to feel the warmth of a family member. In this chilly spring weather, it really wasn't easy. When he was born, he had never seen his parents. A group of beggars had accompanied him as he grew up. Later on, that group of beggars was killed. Although he had avenged them The only family members he had left were Hong Qi and Ling Luo. Now that Hong Qi's grandfather had left, Ling Luo was bitterly training at the Divine Sword sect. As a result, Ling Xiao would sometimes feel somewhat lonely when he stopped cultivating. Fortunately, he had the Moon Maiden by his side. As a result, the haze in his heart had completely dissipated. After passing through the streets and alleys, the two finally arrived at a street in northern Han's capital that specialized in medicinal ingredients. He spent 100,000 low-grade spirit stones to purchase 10 stalks of 1,000-year-old gold-leaf wolf's tail grass. In addition, he spent another 50,000 low-grade spirit stones to purchase 5 stalks of 500-year-old bewildering fog flowers. The capital of northern Han was worthy of being called the largest city in the southeast. There were indeed plenty of medicinal ingredients. In a few of the pharmacies, Ling Xiao even saw medicinal ingredients that were over 10,000 years old. However, those ingredients were too expensive. Furthermore, Ling Xiao had his own. As a result, he didn't buy them. Sometimes he truly felt that it was good to be rich. If it were in the past, he wouldn't have been able to take out so many spirit stones to purchase these ingredients, even if he was beaten to death. Now, however, he could casually take out such a large amount of spirit stones to spend. Seeing this, the surrounding customers were all endlessly envious. Ling Xiao wasn't afraid of exposing his wealth. Anyone who had designs on him would be doomed. Although there were many martial artists in northern Han's capital, there weren't many who had reached his level of cultivation. As for those who had reached the level of the Moon Maiden, he hadn't seen a single one. After buying all the medicinal ingredients, all that was left was the Mirage Beast's Yao core. Moreover, it required the Yao core of a vicious beast king. Ordinary Mirage Beasts wouldn't do. Yao cores were extremely famous in the entire profound world. There were even some tribes that focused on hunting that used Yao cores as currency. Some were even more valuable than spirit stones. Yao cores were also called beast cores, Niden, and so on. In any case, it was a kind of pill that was condensed from the body of a beast. Within it was condensed the energy of the beast's lifetime of cultivation as well as the spiritual energy absorbed from the world. Very few people dared to directly absorb the energy of a Yao core. This was because a single mistake could lead to the destruction of the Yao core and the death of the person. Therefore, under normal circumstances, Yao cores were exceptionally good ingredients for refining pills and medicines. Regardless of whether it was a supplementary ingredient or a primary ingredient, they could display extremely miraculous effects. Medicinal pills refined from Yao cores generally possessed some of the characteristics of the Yao core. However, these characteristics would be greatly enhanced. Moreover, there would be no danger after consumption. This made this type of medicinal pill extremely precious. Naturally, the price wouldn't be cheap. Chapter 699. In fact, other than refining pills, monster cores could also be used to refine formations. When the formations were inlaid on a magic treasure, they would produce all kinds of wonderful effects. For example, it could increase attack power, reduce true essence consumption, have some special skills, increase damage of a certain attribute, and so on. Magic treasures of the same level that were inlaid with alchemy stones and those that were not had a world of difference in their effects. For example, Ling Zhao's swords were inlaid with alchemy stones. That was why they had special skills and special enhancement effects. Otherwise, it would only increase damage. Ling Xiao chose to learn the art of refining formations back then because of this aspect. Monster cores had all kinds of special effects, so they were definitely popular goods in the market. Monster cores of ferocious beast kings were not something that could be obtained by just anyone, unless one was a celestial realm powerhouse. One would not be able to obtain them. Because they were not easy to obtain, their value was often shockingly high. Sister Moon Maiden, why do I seem to see the Yuehua School's logo on those stalls? Ling Xiao could not help but ask when they arrived at a market that sold beast materials. That's because these stalls and shops belonged to the Yuehua School. You've been in the outer sect for too short a time, so it's normal that you haven't experienced this. These are all controlled by the outer sect disciples, or they're rented to others. They can collect rent from them. The Moon Maiden explained, the development of a sect is inseparable from economic prosperity. Otherwise, where do you think the gold, silver, and spirit stones that the sect needs usually come from? Don't tell me they just drop out of thin air. I see. I've been so focused on cultivating that I really haven't thought about these things. Ling Xiao suddenly understood. If that's the case, the Beast King Palace, the Sword King sect, and the 3 sects in the south all have their own businesses? Of course. This is the largest city in the eastern and southern regions. The flow of people is very high, so doing business here will naturally earn the most money. Everyone is willing to come here. The Moon Maiden nodded. Both of them were dressed casually. There is no sign of the Yuehua school on their clothes, so the outer sect disciples of the Yuehua school naturally did not recognize them. The Moon Lady lived in seclusion. Ling Xiao came and went like a ghost. Some people might have some impression of him, but they hadn't seen him that many times. Now that Ling Xiao was in disguise, it was really hard to recognize him. The two of them didn't disturb these people. This time, they weren't out for inspection. They just wanted to buy some things. Ling Xiao kept searching for the sea serpent beast inner core, while the Moon Lady followed behind her, curiously studying the dazzling array of decorations on the stall. Because this was a market specially set up by the 12 sects, the scale was larger and the standards were also higher. The things sold here were not ordinary. Even the hawthorn on the Tonghalu was a special type of hawthorn that could strengthen one's body and prolong one's life. Of course, good things were naturally expensive. In other places, a stick of candied haws would only cost a coin of silver, but here gold was useless, so they could only buy it with spirit stones. Therefore, those who came here were naturally people with status and prestige. There were disciples of the 12 sects, members of the Northern Han royal family, as well as solitary practitioners. Moreover, their strength was not ordinary. Dang, dang, dang. The sound of a gong suddenly resounded on the street. Everyone listen up. His Highness, the Crown Prince of Northern Han, recently brought back a giant elephant from the Nanman Kingdom. His Highness the Crown Prince said that whoever can tame it will be rewarded with a sea serpent beast inner core and 1 million low-grade spirit stones. Hearing this, Ling Xiao couldn't help but be overjoyed, although the other party didn't say that the reward must be a sea serpent beast inner core. Having a sea serpent beast inner core meant that he could exchange it with others. Moreover, this was His Highness the Crown Prince of Northern Han. His status was even higher than Zhao Ji, the 4th prince. Perhaps he could really obtain a sea serpent beast inner core. Thinking of this, he glanced at the Moon Lady beside him. How could the Moon Lady not understand his thoughts? Nodding, the two of them asked about the location of the challenge and then rushed over. This place was similar to the Beast Battle Arena in Sword King City. However, there were no slaves or prisoners on death row. It was just a battle between beasts, or a battle between martial artists and beasts. At this time, there were already a lot of people gathered in the stands. Ling Xiao and the Moon Lady directly walked to the front row. Since he wanted to challenge, it was naturally more suitable for him to sit here. However, no one stopped him because those who could walk to the front 3 rows were not weak. In the arena, a 7 to 8 meter tall giant elephant stood there. It looked majestic and would occasionally let out furious roars. This was because someone was fighting with it. What made Ling Xiao interested was that the person fighting with the giant elephant was actually an old acquaintance. He was the Decepticons of the Beast King Palace. After not seeing him for a few days, although the Decepticons' cultivation did not break through, his fighting strength had obviously increased. His valiant skills caused the spectators to constantly cheer. Although Ling Xiao did not care about 1 million low-grade spiritual stones, in fact, most martial artists were very poor. To them, 1 million low-grade spiritual stones was an astronomical amount. Looking around, Ling Xiao saw a few familiar figures in the stands. Shi Jiao, Wang Lang, Li Hu from the Beast King Palace, Chen Meng and Jian Feng from the Sword King sect. This giant elephant is really fierce. It seems like the Decepticons can't hold on for much longer. Yeah, it's fine if it's just killing it. However, the Crown Prince wants to tame it. This is not easy. Decepticons can't do it, but senior sister Chen Meng can definitely do it. In terms of details, only senior sister Chen Meng can do it. Unexpectedly, Chen Meng, who had been defeated by Ling Xiao, had people flattering her. Moreover, the people who were flattering Chen Meng seemed to be the disciples of the 3 southern sections. However, this was also true. Jian Wuji was one of the 6 young masters of the sacred dynasty. Chen Meng could be considered Jian Wuji's woman. In the end, these people were flattering Jian Wuji because they were giving face to Jian Wuji. Under these circumstances, it was natural for Chen Meng to be held in high regard. Speaking of which, Ling Xiao still did not know what Chen Meng's martial spirit was. In their last battle, he had easily defeated her. He was a bit curious. However, it was only curiosity. Chen Meng did not count for much at the moment. His goal was the Holy Sun, the first of the 6 young masters of the sacred dynasty. Thinking of this, Ling Xiao's gaze returned to the stage. The battle was about to end. Decepticons' disadvantage was increasing. It seemed that the Crown Prince of Northern Han's decision to go to war and ask the experts of the various sects to come help was not without reason. This giant elephant was not easy to deal with. This giant elephant was not the same as an ordinary elephant. Its entire body was as white as jade. Moreover, it was suffused with a strange jade luster. Standing there, it was like an immortal beast suppressing an evil spirit. Chapter 700. The huge elephant's 2 tusks were extremely long, and there was a faint image of a god on them. This was enough to prove that this huge elephant possessed an ancient bloodline. Whoever could obtain it might be able to learn a god from its body. Roar! The huge elephant suddenly swung its trunk, sending Decepticons flying. Decepticons let out a miserable groan as he was thrown into the stands, a helpless expression on his face. This beast is truly formidable. This should be the silver jade demon elephant. Rumor has it that it is a vicious beast with an extremely strong defense. Moreover, it has an extremely violent temperament and will not easily yield to others. The Moon Maiden whispered. Ling Xiao nodded. He had also seen descriptions of the silver jade demon elephant in ancient records. Among vicious beasts, the moment it was born, it had the strength of a half-step Empyrean. If it matured naturally, it would be able to advance to a half-step Empyrean level vicious beast king with 90% of its strength. As for individual silver jade demon elephants, because they had awakened the ancient bloodline within their body, they could even directly mature into evil beasts. Once they matured into evil beasts, they would be able to compete with Heaven Realm experts. It was extremely frightening. More importantly, beasts below the level of vicious beasts were unable to cultivate on their own. Once they matured into evil beasts, they would be able to cultivate on their own. In other words, their strength would continuously increase. Thus, at the evil beast stage, the division of strength between beasts was basically the same as human martial artists. The strength comparison would also become more obvious. It was no wonder that His Highness the Crown Prince of Northern Han wished to tame this thing. This was a beast that had the potential to evolve into an evil beast. In the future, it might even be able to escort him. However, Ling Xiao was not very interested in this thing. What he wanted more was the inner core of a vicious beast king. Before preparing to enter the arena, Ling Xiao used the analytical ability of the mountain and river martial spirit and began to analyze the silver jade demon elephant, attempting to find some of its flaws. If it was only to kill it, he had complete confidence in succeeding. However, the problem was that he could not kill it, only tame it. This required some ingenious methods. Grasping the opponent's weakness, was extremely crucial. At this moment, the disciples surrounding Qinmeng were also discussing who would challenge the silver jade golem. Sad heartbreak, why don't you give it a try? Your cultivation is a bit stronger than that Decepticon's, and as the #1 core disciple of the Poison King sect, you are very proficient in using poison. Taking down that silver jade demonic elephant shouldn't be a problem, right? At this moment, Qinmeng smiled and said to a very skinny young man who looked 30% human and 70% ghost, "Haha, Senior Sister Qinmeng, don't joke around. How powerful are the attacks of the silver jade demonic elephant? Only Decepticon's defense can withstand it. If it was me, I would probably fall to my death." He shook his head with a sad smile and said, "It's a pity that I can't kill him. Otherwise it would be easy. You don't have to worry about that. Although I can't tame the silver jade demon elephant, there is an electric shock array in this field. Once it hurts you, I can directly shock it." At this moment, a dignified young man sitting next to Qinmeng said with a smile, "Your Highness, are you serious?" Sad Heartbreak's eyes immediately lit up. In fact, how could he not want to give it a try? 1,000,000 low-grade spirit stones was enough for him to squander for a long time. Not to mention, he could use the inner core of a vicious beast king to refine all kinds of poisons. Previously, he was indeed afraid of death. However, now that he didn't have to die, what was there to be afraid of? In any case, I am the Crown Prince of Northern Han. Could it be that I would joke about this matter? The young man seemed somewhat displeased. "Ha ha ha. Since Your Highness, the Crown Prince says so, then I'll give it a try." Heartbroken, he believed that the Crown Prince of Northern Han would not harm him. This was because the reasoning was very simple. Whether or not the Crown Prince could succeed the throne in the future would depend on the Poison King sect's base and the Poison King sect's support. Although the Poison King sect was not within Northern Han's territory, Northern Han was currently incomparably powerful. After successive years of war, they had already invaded the southern region. In the future, unifying the eastern and southern regions and establishing the great Han Empire was not impossible. In the future, the sacred dynasty might even be surnamed Zhao. As a result, the Poison King sect was currently very close to Northern Han. The one they supported was the Crown Prince. Thinking of this, Sad Heartbreak soared into the air and transformed into a green mist, instantly appearing in the bestial battle arena. This scene could not be described as not gorgeous. Immediately, it attracted many cries of surprise. What a graceful movement technique! Brother Sad is indeed worthy of being the #1 core disciple of the Poison King sect. Truly formidable. I heard that in the martial competition of the 3 sects of the South, your movement technique was #1. Now it seems that it wasn't a boast. With someone performing, there would naturally be people who would support them. The ones who were cheering the most were naturally the disciples of the 3 sects of the South. It was unknown whether or not it was a rumor. In any case, there had recently been a rumor that the 3 sects of the South were currently discussing a merger. Once the 3 sects merged, they would become a major power. It was possible that the Poison King sect, Jadewater Divine Palace, and Profound Fire sect would have to make way for them. From the looks of it, this rumor was very likely true. Just from the fact that the disciples of the 3 sects of the South were cheering for Sad Heartbreak, it could be seen. To the 3 sects of the East, this was definitely not a good thing. The 3 sects of the East had always had a close relationship with Northern Han. For Northern Han's southern expedition, they had paid a great price. If the 3 sects of the South merged and became Northern Han's trusted subordinates, the 3 sects of the East would be in trouble. This was especially true for the Yuehua school, which had the closest relationship with Northern Han's imperial family. They would definitely be the first to bear the brunt of the 3 sects merger. It's actually someone from the 3 sects of the South. Just look at their extravagance. They are much bigger than our 3 sects of the East. Isn't that so? Decepticons is the number one core disciple of the Beast King Palace of the three sects of the East. If this sad heartbreak were to win, our three sects of the East would truly lose face. I heard that the Sword King sect has recently been very close to the three sects of the South. Don't tell me that they want to become slaves. If that's the case, our Eastern martial artists would lose face. The majority of the people present were martial artists from the East and South. Normally, everyone would chat cheerfully and wittily, not feeling that there was anything wrong. However, once there was competition, the East and South would immediately become enemies and competitors. The discussions of these people made the martial artists of the three sects of the South rather complacent and arrogant. It was as if sad heartbreak had already defeated the silver jade devil elephant and stepped on the three sects of the East. A light smile appeared on Chunmeng's face. There was even some arrogance and pride. This was because Chun Nanxing had told her that the Holy Sun was preparing to establish a super sect for the entire Heavenly Dragon continent, the Heavenly Dragon Institute. Behind the Heavenly Dragon Institute, there were 7 sects: the Sacred Dynasty, the Heavenly King sect, the Gu King sect, the Poison King sect, the Tang sect, the Sword King sect, and the Profound Fire sect. This matter would be announced during this martial Dao festival. In fact, she was already a member of the Heavenly Dragon Institute. The 6 young masters of the Sacred Dynasty all belonged to the Heavenly Dragon Institute. Chapter 701. Chunmeng wanted to see if those martial artists who despised her for being close to the 3 southern sects would be so shocked that they would bite off their tongues when the Heavenly Dragon Institute was established. At that time, if the Yuehua School, Beast King Palace, Divine Sword Sect, and other sects did not submit to the Heavenly Dragon Institute, only death would await them. While Chunmeng was thinking about this, Grief Heartbreak was already standing in the bestial battle arena. However, there was one person who was faster than Grief Heartbreak. Not only did he stand in the bestial battle arena, he also issued a challenge. When Grief Heartbreak saw this person, he could not help but stare blankly. There was actually someone who dared to stand in front of him. This person was truly reckless. The people of the Poison King sect had always been vicious and merciless. If there was a disagreement, they would take someone's life. This had always been their sect style. This time was no exception. Grief Heartbreak was older than Ling Xiao by a few years, but not older. However, his height was actually shorter than Ling Xiao. Standing behind Ling Xiao, he looked like a follower. This caused the vicious Poison King sect disciple, Grief Heartbreak, to be extremely furious. Who is that youngster? I don't know. He actually dares to stand in front of Grief Heartbreak. Isn't he courting death? Who warned him? Grief Heartbreak's methods are ruthless. Even if he is ruthless, would he kill someone for no reason? Humph, you are right. A few days ago, when we were eating in a tavern, there were a few people at the next table who spoke a little too loudly, and they were all killed by Grief Heartbreak. Moreover, they were all killed by poison. Each and every one of them died miserably. Also, just yesterday, Grief Heartbreak and another martial artist took a fancy to the same item. Because that person offered a higher price, he killed him on the spot. There are countless similar cases. This kind of person cannot be provoked. How can he be so vicious? Could it be that no one cares? Care? Who dares to care? Grief Heartbreak is the number 1 core disciple of the Poison King sect. Among the 3 southern sects, he is also ranked 3rd. He is very close to His Highness the Crown Prince of Northern Han. Whoever cares about him is courting death. TSK, what a pity. A youngster is going to be finished for no reason. In the stands, the sounds of discussion rose and fell. Everyone seemed to have seen Ling Xiao's tragic death. However, no one dared to warn Ling Xiao. If they did, it would mean offending Grief. In the end, they might be killed by Grief, just like that young man. Just then, Sorrow Heartbreak sneered and turned around to look at the Crown Prince. The Northern Han Crown Prince shook his head, indicating that he did not recognize this youth. Seeing this notification, Sorrow Heartbreak immediately attacked. He pointed out a finger, and a green light appeared on his fingertip. It was obvious that it contained a highly toxic substance. Dim light finger. Ah! Some people cried out in alarm, feeling sorrow for that youth. There were also some who rejoiced in his misfortune, feeling that this youth was truly blind, actually offending someone who was heartbroken. However, in the next moment, the sorrowful dim light finger actually pierced the air. The young man only moved his feet slightly and dodged this attack. Cries of astonishment rang out one after another. No one would have thought that this youth would be able to dodge the heartbreak sorrow so easily. Isn't that Ling Xiao? At this moment, the Decepticons finally recognized the youth in the arena. It really is Ling Xiao. Wang Lang, Li Hu, Shi Jiao, Chen Meng, and Jian Feng all recognized Ling Xiao. They, who were previously astonished, were no longer astonished. Ling Xiao, who was able to defeat the Decepticons, and Chen Meng, dodging Sorrow Heartbreak's dim light finger, did not seem to be a big deal. Who is Ling Xiao? The Northern Han Crown Prince asked with a frown. Yuehua School's chief core disciple. Chen Meng indifferently replied, so it is someone from the sect that my nephew Zhao Ji belongs to. The Northern Han Crown Prince coldly snorted, his eyes flickering with dense killing intent. His position as Crown Prince could be said to be somewhat dishonorable. Therefore, what he feared the most was that Zhao Ji would return and fight him for the throne. The Northern Han Crown Prince looked at Ling Xiao and discovered that Ling Xiao was already standing there facing Sorrow Heartbreak. Why did your distinguished self attack me for no reason at all? Ling Xiao coldly asked. His eyes flickered with a black gold radiance. His hair had also turned black gold due to the ancient hellish dragon martial soul, causing Ling Xiao to give off a somewhat strange and callous feeling. It's nothing. You were standing in front of me, that's all. Walking on the road, I saw a rock blocking my path. Naturally, I would kick it away. Sorrow Heartbreak indifferently said, although he was somewhat shocked that he was unable to kill Ling Xiao in one move, he still felt disdain for the youth in front of him. There was no other reason other than the fact that he was very strong. Therefore, he was confident. Oh, I understand. Now that you are unable to kick away this stinking rock, what should you do? Ling Xiao asked with a smile. Sorrow Heartbreak suddenly revealed a sinister smile and said, I will give you two choices. One is to obediently stand here and let me kill you. Perhaps you can die a quick death. The other choice is to scram and leave this challenge to me. Very arrogant. You are probably a disciple of a large sect, right? Ling Xiao asked with a smile that was not a smile. That's right. I am the Poison King sect's chief core disciple. If you are tactful, then scram. Otherwise, I will let you know my prowess. Sorrow Heartbreak's voice resounded. Poison King sect? I wonder if you are ranked in the top 100 of the 12 sects? Ling Xiao asked. Hearing this question, Sorrow Heartbreak was originally unwilling to answer. He could not just answer every question. However, he also wanted to show off. Therefore, he said in a clear voice, listen well, I am ranked 96th in the 12 sects. 96th? Seeing how arrogant you are, I thought you were one of the 6 young masters of the sacred dynasty. Truly disappointing. Ling Xiao sighed and said. Hearing this, many people in the stands opened their mouths wide. This young man was really arrogant. He was ranked 96th in the 12 sects. This was the top 100. How could he say that he was disappointed? The disciples of the 3 southern sects looked at Ling Xiao with eyes full of anger. He actually looked down on Sorrow Heartbreak. Wasn't that the same as looking down on them? Boy, I have given you a chance. Don't refuse a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit. Sorrow Heartbreak's face became gloomier. His tone was cold and indifferent, mixed with a strong threat and warning. Ling Xiao sneered and said, This is really funny. When you attacked me from behind, you did not give me a chance. Now, you are pretending to be a good person? It seems that you are stubborn. The killing intent in Sorrow Heartbreak's eyes became more and more intense. The reason why he did not make a move for a long time was because he did not find the opponent's flaw. Just now, he did not kill the opponent. It was already a miscalculation. Next, he must not be careless. Otherwise, losing face was a small matter, but losing his life was a big matter. What nonsense are you spouting? Boy, your strength is lacking. Go to the side and let Sorrow Heartbreak go. At this moment, the Crown Prince of Northern Han spoke. And who are you? Ling Xiao coldly looked at this person. His complexion was not good. Chapter 702. Ling Xiao's overall impression of the state of Northern Han was quite good. After all, regardless of whether it was Lin Zhe or Zhao Ji, he could be considered to be friends who had gone through life and death with them. Even Zhao Ci worshipped him as an idol. As a result, if possible, he was absolutely unwilling to become enemies with the state of Northern Han. However, the words of the Northern Han Crown Prince were too unpleasant. This prince is the Crown Prince of the state of Northern Han's Eastern Palace. This time's challenge will be decided by this prince. Whoever this prince allows can go up. Whoever this prince does not allow cannot go up. The Crown Prince of Northern Han arrogantly declared. This person had been spoiled rotten. It was likely that the three sects of the South treated him with the same respect as a master. As a result, he truly believed himself to be above others. In reality, for someone like this, whose cultivation was only at the martial vein realm, Ling Xiao could drown him to death with a single spit. Moreover, after killing him, there would be absolutely no problems. Hee. Since that is the case, you might as well just give him the reward. There is no need to hypocritically create a challenge. Isn't this just fooling the heroes of the world? Ling Xiao's words were very loud. The disciples of the sects do not have as much time as you, the Crown Prince. They still have many things to do and do not have the time to blindly waste time with you. Zhao Yu, brat, are you toying with this daddy? Decepticons was the first to become unhappy. He was originally very unhappy about losing to the silver jade demon elephant. Now, he suddenly realized that this was simply a method by which the Crown Prince of Northern Han, Zhao Yu, was fishing for fame. He wanted to use this as a pretext to raise the reputation of the three sects of the South. At the same time, he displayed his wealth and tolerance as the Crown Prince. Although he was stupid, with Ling Xiao's reminder, he instantly understood. Not only him, but many of the people in the stands began to whisper. Some of them were even cursing. After all, Zhao Yu had connections with the three sects of the South. This was something that the majority of the people present were very clear about. What's your name? Heartbroken, right? I don't think you need to challenge it anymore. It's just a show anyway. You just need to act according to the script of your Crown Prince. I reckon that when you can't hold on anymore, the electric shock formation in the bestial battle arena should be activated. At that time, it will help you defeat the silver jade demon elephant. Ling Xiao's face was filled with disdain and contempt. Of course, there was also a strong sense of mockery. Also, brother tyrant, don't be angry. You still haven't seen through this. This Crown Prince is just teasing us. Ling Xiao's words seemed to be comforting the Decepticons, but in fact, it was more effective than sowing discord. *CK him. Decepticons immediately jumped out, wanting to fight it out with Zhao Yu. The position of the 12 sects was not to be challenged. Many people in the spectator stands began to point at Zhao Yu, causing the originally calm and confident Crown Prince to feel as if his butt was on fire. His back was drenched in cold sweat. Brother Tyrant, calm down. Let's listen to what the Crown Prince has to say. Chen Meng hurriedly stopped Decepticons and said, Zhao Yu hurriedly said, yes. Young hero Tyrant, don't listen to this kid's nonsense. He's clearly sowing discord. What a joke. I'm sowing discord? Then may I ask why I'm not allowed to challenge it? Do you dare to say that there's nothing fishy about this? Ling Xiao questioned. That's because the Crown Prince cares for you. He's afraid that you're too weak and will die in the bestial battle arena. Heartbroken said eerily, Is that so? I think I'm quite strong. Ling Xiao smiled and said, Some people couldn't even kill me when they attacked me from behind. Kid, I think you won't shed tears until you see the coffin. Since that's the case, let's fight first. Whoever wins will challenge the silver jade demon elephant. How about that? Heartbroken had to get back the Crown Prince's face. Therefore, he could only use his strength to prove that the Crown Prince really cares about Ling Xiao. What a joke! If I challenge the silver jade demon elephant, I'll get the Beast King's core and 1,000,000 low-grade spirit stones. What's the benefit of fighting with you? Ling Xiao said disdainfully. I can give you the same thing. Heartbroken really didn't like to talk nonsense. However, he still had to make things clear today. Otherwise, if he killed Ling Xiao like this, others would only say that he killed him to silence him. They would say that the Crown Prince really made a fool of the sect's disciples. This could be a big or small matter. If it affected the establishment of the Sky Dragon Institute, then his sin would be big. Oh, are you serious? Ling Xiao immediately showed an interested expression. In any case, he didn't care. Whether he fought with others or with the silver jade demon elephant, it was fine as long as he could get what he wanted in the end. Of course it's true. This Crown Prince can testify. Crown Prince Zhao Yu also stood out and said he couldn't wait for Heartbroken to kill Ling Xiao in the battle. I want a mirage beast inner core of a feral king. Do you have it too? Ling Xiao asked. It's a small matter. This Crown Prince doesn't dare to speak nonsense in front of the heroes of the world. Zhao Yu did have a sea serpent beast's inner core, and it was indeed a king-grade beast core. However, this thing was prepared for the establishment of the Heavenly Dragon Institute. It was said that it was used to set up a fog formation for the Institute. Of course, he wouldn't give it to Ling Xiao. Anyway, Ling Xiao was going to die. He wouldn't give it away, so he didn't have to bear any consequences. Okay, if that's the case, then it's fine. However, I also have a suggestion. Ling Xiao looked at Heartbroken and said jokingly, Say it. Since we're going to play, let's play something exciting. How about a life and death battle? In fact, from the moment Heartbroken attacked Ling Xiao, he had already written Heartbroken on his death list. This person must be killed. But how to kill him to make it more valuable? In this situation, it was more valuable. Not only could it intimidate the 3 southern sects, but it could also get what he wanted. It could make Northern Han weigh the importance of Yuehua School. It was simply killing 2 birds with 1 stone. Heartbroken's pupils shrank when he heard this. A life and death battle? He did want to kill Ling Xiao. He shouldn't be afraid of a life and death battle. But why was this kid in front of him so calm? Moreover, he dared to initiate a life and death battle? What was he relying on? What? The 3rd-ranked core disciple of the 3 southern sects is actually afraid of a nobody like me. Ling Xiao mocked. If that's the case, then get lost. I still want to challenge the silver jade devil elephant. Arrogant, extremely arrogant. The disciples of the 3 southern sects trembled with anger. Senior Apprentice Brother Bei agreed to kill this kid. Senior Apprentice Brother Bei, since this kid doesn't know what's good for him, then don't give him a way out. Kill him. Under the pressure of public opinion, Heartbroken couldn't refuse even if he wanted to. He was now in a dilemma. On one hand, he was worried that Ling Xiao had a backup plan. He didn't want to stake everything on this one throw, and there was no need to. On the other hand, with so many people supporting him, if he didn't agree, then he would lose all his face. Chapter 703. Of everyone present, only Qinmeng wanted to persuade grief, heartbreak. Qinmeng is very clear on how terrifying Ling Xiao is, especially that valiant and strange soul secret technique. It is impossible to guard against it. However, she cannot say it. If she says it, she would be admitting in front of everyone that she is inferior to Ling Xiao. As someone who cares about face, she does not dare to do so. A life and death duel is a life and death duel. Don't tell me I'm afraid of you. Grief Heartbreak was completely forced into a dead end by the pressure of public opinion. Of course, this is also the effect that Ling Xiao deliberately created. Otherwise, if Grief Heartbreak were to die in an ordinary duel, there would definitely be people looking for trouble. However, it is different now. In a life and death duel, before the duel begins, a life and death contract will be signed. No matter who dies, neither party will look for trouble with the other. Good. Since that is the case, let's begin. Ling Xiao's lips curl into a sneer. Originally, he only came today for the sea serpent beast's inner core. However, since someone is courting death, he does not mind casually dealing with a piece of trash. He is not afraid that Zhao Yi will go back on his word after the duel. If he dares to go back on his word, he will kill this guy and pave the way for Zhao Ji. With the Moon Maiden present, he believes that no one will dare to go back on their word. Even the Sage Emperor would not dare, let alone the insignificant Northern Han Emperor. In the beast fighting arena, the silver jade demonic elephant has already been taken away. Grief Heartbreak coldly looks at Ling Xiao's strange black and gold eyes. He does not see the slightest bit of nervousness, not to mention any fear. Who is this person? Why is he so confident? Grief Heartbreak does not understand. This one is Grief Heartbreak, the chief core disciple of the Poison King sect. Brat, what is your name? Chen Meng and the others recognize Ling Xiao, but Grief Heartbreak does not. Ling Xiao, the chief core disciple of the Yuehua school. Ling Xiao indifferently says, Ling Xiao does not lack etiquette at all. Just this one voice causes the entire stands to explode. The name Ling Xiao is now known to almost everyone in Northern Han. He had wreaked havoc in the Sword King sect's bestial battle arena, defeated Qin Meng and Decepticons in the Trisect martial competition, and even provoked Jian Wuji. After that, the Holy Sun and the people from the Heavenly King sect went to Yuehua school to denounce him, but they were directly kicked out. Everything was related to this young man. Oh, so you're that Ling Xiao who fishes for fame and compliments. You use despicable means to win against Senior's sister Qin Meng. Very good. Let me see what you're made of today. Grief had naturally heard of Ling Xiao's name as well, but he was more disdainful and unhappy about it. Ling Xiao didn't give face to the Holy Sun and defeated Qin Meng. This was something that even the Holy Sun wouldn't dare to do. What right does this kid have? As he spoke, Sorrow Heartbreak suddenly emitted a cold killing intent, and a strange martial soul appeared behind him. It was a doll. He looked like a baby who had just been born for 2 to 3 months. However, his appearance was very strange. He was silver all over, and his eyes were white. It was very scary. Is this the Mercury Ghost Infant Martial Soul? It was said that when great figures were buried, they would be accompanied by living sacrifices. One method was to pour mercury into the baby's body while it was still alive. This way, the body wouldn't rot. This method was extremely vicious and ruthless. It was simply inhumane. And people who had the Mercury Ghost Infant Martial Soul would have strong resentment and an extremely disagreeable character. Apparently, Grief Heartbreak was such a person. You have good eyesight. That's right, it's the Mercury Ghost Infant Martial Soul. Grief Heartbreak sneered, and the terrifying aura he released became more ferocious, all of it rushing toward Ling Xiao. It was an extremely cold intent, as if it wanted to strangle Ling Xiao to death. Slaughter intent. Ling Xiao was slightly surprised. He didn't expect Grief Heartbreak to have the slaughter intent. It was a pity that he was completely controlled by the slaughter intent and became its captive. In comparison, Ling Xiao had the slaughter intent, but he was the controller. He would only release it when he wanted to use it. When he didn't use it, the power of the slaughter intent would be confined in his spiritual sea. Grief Heartbreak couldn't help but smile when he saw the change in Ling Xiao's expression. It seemed that his slaughter intent had indeed surprised Ling Xiao. In this case, Ling Xiao shouldn't be too strong. He used to rely on the slaughter intent to deal with opponents who were difficult to defeat. Brat, the will of slaughter has already made you so surprised. Then, if I use something even more shocking, will you be scared to tears? Grief Heartbreak sneered. You actually dare to propose a life and death battle. You really know how to find a place to die. As he spoke, the martial soul behind Grief Heartbreak shook, and a green, poisonous fog appeared. It quickly spread until it covered the entire bestial battle arena. Poisonous fog! When Ling Xiao saw the green fog, he didn't panic. Instead, he was happy. He was preparing to cultivate the fog, celestial phenomenon next. Although the green, poisonous fog couldn't be considered a celestial phenomenon, it still had the same effect. Perhaps this battle was the right one. He might be able to learn something from it. Ha ha ha, go to hell, boy. You can struggle to survive in this poisonous fog. Have a taste of what despair is. In the thick green mist, Sad Heartbreak let out a crazy mocking laugh. It's just a poisonous fog. What can it do to me? Ling Xiao sneered disdainfully. The Plague Demon King's shadow appeared behind him. This martial soul was the most suitable to deal with the poisonous fog. Gently lifting his foot, Ling Xiao slowly walked towards Grief Heartbreak. The Plague Demon King behind him opened its mouth and inhaled. A large amount of poisonous fog began to enter the Plague Demon King's martial soul. Grief Heartbreak looked at this scene in surprise. His face suddenly became serious. He had seen many opponents, but no one had been able to break through his poisonous fog like this. Ling Xiao, this boy, was simply his nemesis, but he couldn't admit defeat like this. He was a half-step heavenly venerable with 60% of his strength. His cultivation was much stronger than Ling Xiao's. He definitely wouldn't lose to Ling Xiao like this. Absolutely not. The poisonous fog dissipated. The ghost infant behind him let out a mournful cry. 2 streaks of mercury merged into his palms and pierced through the air. Ling Xiao looked at Grief Heartbreak and walked slowly. He didn't seem to have any reaction. In his heart, he was focused on comprehending the mysteries of the fog. Bang! Pa! The 2 mercury spikes were directly smashed away by the Plague Demon King. They couldn't cause the slightest bit of damage to Ling Xiao. Grief Heartbreak, your massacre intent is very powerful. Unfortunately, your usage is only superficial. Moreover, it's too immature. Ling Xiao suddenly opened his eyes. There was already a trace of understanding in his mind. Although he hadn't cultivated the fog, celestial phenomenon yet, he believed that after returning this time, with the help of the spirit liquid and this trace of understanding, he would definitely succeed. I have to thank you for the generous gift you gave me. Therefore, in the end, I'll let you die a quick death. I won't let you die in grief. Ling Xiao smiled. The Plague Demon King behind him disappeared and was replaced by Yi Guxian. Chapter 704. Yi Guxian's figure appeared behind Ling Xiao. It was a cold and austere demonic sword, emitting a desolate and solemn ancient aura. And in his hand was the overflowing rain sword. On the sword's body, a red light flickered, like a blood-red beast that wanted to escape. Almost everyone had something like willpower, but to use it in battle, only a few warriors could do it. There were 3 realms of using willpower. The first realm was spiritual pressure, which was the pressure brought about by soul power. For example, domineering aura, murderous aura, baleful aura, and so on were all external manifestations of spiritual pressure after fusing with true essence. It could bring enormous pressure to the opponent and could even cause the opponent's spirit to collapse and suffer a crushing defeat. This realm was actually the most basic way to use willpower. Grief Heartbreak had only reached this realm. The second realm was called solidification, which was to condense willpower into a physical attack. Not only could it cause mental damage, but it could also directly injure the opponent's body. This was the realm that Ling Xiao was currently at. It was much higher than grief and heartbreak. Solidification of willpower could be used in many ways. It could be used alone to deal with the enemy, but it could also be used in a move to increase the power of the move. The third realm was very powerful, called concept, which could use willpower to create a spatial environment out of thin air. This was not an illusion, nor was it an illusion, because in this space, the damage caused by willpower was real. Even if it was an injury that shouldn't exist, it would become real. This was the terror of concept. At present, Ling Xiao's willpower had not reached this realm. Otherwise, with just his willpower, Ling Xiao could make grief heartbreak die without a burial place. In the stands, everyone saw the demonic sword behind Ling Xiao's back and felt a tremor. They had long heard that the Yuehua school's Ling Xiao could use many kinds of martial spirits. Now, it seemed that this rumor was not false. Moreover, this sword martial spirit was a bit too evil. It made people feel very uncomfortable looking at it. If the people in the stands were already like this, there was no need to mention the heartbroken person standing opposite them. His brow furrowed deeply as he couldn't understand how Ling Xiao, a mere ninth-layer transcendent realm cultivator, could release such a terrifying aura that made him feel a deep sense of fear and crisis. No, why would I be afraid of him? I am a martial artist who has grasped the will of slaughter. Coupled with the Mercury Ghost infant martial spirit's demonic aura, my cultivation is so much higher than his. I will definitely not lose to him. Heartbroken Sorrow shook his head. The fear and sense of crisis in his heart suddenly disappeared. What replaced it was a pressing soul pressure. Then his body suddenly rushed forward. A loud rumbling sound came from the beast-fighting coliseum, and the bluestone floor almost shattered. Amidst the dust and smoke, Sorrow Heartbreak displayed his proud movement skill, pouncing towards Ling Xiao with an imposing manner. His entire body emitted an extremely eerie and dark green light, causing people's hearts to tremble in fear. What a terrifying poison technique! Coupled with his spiritual pressure and that amazing movement skill, no wonder this person is ranked third among the southern three great sects. His strength is really shocking. Yeah, his true qi is so dense. 60% of his strength is already at the half-step, heavenly venerable level. That Ling Xiao is finished. The neutral spectators were all amazed by Heartbroken Sorrow's terrifying strength. The Poison King sect's chief core disciple, ranked third among the southern three great sects, really shocked the audience with just one move, causing countless people to be terrified. Ha ha ha! Senior Brother Sorrow is finally willing to use his trump card. Yuehua School is really useless these years. They actually allowed such a waste to become their chief core disciple. This move is enough to take his dog life. Why don't we just destroy Yuehua School? It's a bit disgusting to be ranked among the 12 great sects with such a sect. The disciples of the southern three great sects naturally despised Ling Xiao and made a lot of sarcastic remarks. After all, in their opinion, a ninth-level transcendent realm, invincible realm cultivator dared to challenge a half-step, heavenly venerable, with 60% of his strength. This was courting death. Ling Xiao's eyes revealed a cold and disdainful smile. He had always been able to do two things at once, and they didn't affect each other. On one hand, he was fighting Heartbroken Sorrow. On the other hand, he was always vigilant of everything around him. Naturally, he could hear the discussions of those people. He really didn't know what kind of expression the disciples of the southern three great sects would have if this sword strike took Heartbroken Sorrow's life. The distance between the two was rapidly closing, and the collision of their auras was becoming more and more obvious. In the arena, smoke and dust flew, and the wind blew, and the figures of the two became blurred again. The blood-red light of the overflow rain sword in Ling Xiao's hand trembled more violently, as if it would fly out of his right hand at any time. Qi! The sword light finally bloomed. The people in the stands could only see the light in the dim arena, but they couldn't see the two figures. There was the sound of something being pierced. Ling Zhao's sword had already stabbed out, and a blood-red human-shaped sword qi instantly pierced through Heartbroken Sorrow's protective true qi, and even penetrated the poison he had painstakingly condensed. His grief-stricken face revealed a look of intense fear. They had the same slaughter will, but Ling Zhao's was much stronger than his. Heartbroken Sorrow regretted it completely, but he couldn't escape. He knew that if he turned his back on Ling Zhao, the result would be worse. So he instantly mobilized all the true qi he could muster, ready to fight to the death. The Mercury ghost baby appeared in front of him, condensed with nearly 70% of his strength. "Stop him!" Heartbroken Sorrow roared, and the Mercury ghost baby emitted a piercing silver light, which almost penetrated the obstruction of the smoke and dust. "Can you stop it?" A cold voice came out of Ling Zhao's mouth. The sharp, red sword shadow condensed a terrifying slaughter will, easily tearing through the Mercury ghost baby's defense, and then piercing through Heartbroken Sorrow's throat. In just a moment, Heartbroken Sorrow's aura was gone, and what was left was a corpse with wide eyes. "You are very sad because you met me, your nemesis. Otherwise, you wouldn't have died so quickly." Ling Zhao was very clear that the reason he could kill Heartbroken Sorrow so easily was because he completely restrained the other party. He was immune to poison, and Heartbroken Sorrow's poison art had no effect. His slaughter will was even stronger than Heartbroken Sorrow's, which made Heartbroken Sorrow's slaughter will completely useless. In other words, Heartbroken Sorrow's two best skills were useless against him, and he could only rely on his cultivation base. But in terms of strength, true qi, and martial skills, Heartbroken Sorrow was inferior to Ling Zhao in every aspect. His final defeat was the result of overestimating his own strength. "I'm dying of anxiety. What's going on?" In the stands, people were anxiously waiting for the smoke and dust to disperse because they couldn't see what had happened behind the smoke and dust. They only saw a red and a white light suddenly rise, but they didn't know what had happened. Chapter 705. What's the hurry? There's no need to worry. That Ling Zhao is just a trivial 9th-level transcendent realm cultivator. Even I can easily defeat him, let alone Senior Brother Bei. I really don't know what you're worried about. That's right. That guy who overestimated himself is definitely dead. In a life and death battle, he brought about his own destruction. It wasn't just the disciples of the 3 southern sects who thought so. Even the neutral cultivators thought the same. The Yuehua school had declined too quickly in recent years. No one put it in their eyes anymore. As for the chief core disciple of the Yuehua school, he wasn't even worth mentioning. Only the Decepticons and Chen Meng, who had fought against Ling Zhao before, had serious expressions on their faces. Although they felt that Bei Duanchang could win, they didn't think it would be an easy victory. Haha, it seems like this queen's reward really belongs to Bei Duanchang. I already told him to challenge the silver jade demon elephant, but that Ling Zhao refused to listen. The crown prince of northern Han, Zhao Yu, stood up and looked at the crowd. "Are there any disciples of the Yuehua school among you? Go back and tell your sect master that in the future, don't send the disciples out to die for no reason." There really were disciples of the Yuehua school in the crowd. Some were from the outer sect, while others were from the inner sect. All of them lowered their heads, wishing they could tear off the symbol on their chests. It was too shameful. They now felt that being a disciple of the Yuehua school was a disgrace. They didn't dare to say anything and could only lower their heads silently. However, someone still stood up in the end. "Your Highness Crown Prince, this matter isn't over yet. I don't believe that Senior Brother Ling will lose." The one who spoke was a young man who had just been promoted to an inner disciple of the Yuehua school. He was very young, and Ling Zhao might not even know his name. However, this person had always worshipped Ling Zhao as an idol. In his opinion, Ling Zhao was the one who could change the Yuehua school and revive the Yuehua school. "Little fellow, you think too much." Zhao Yu laughed disdainfully. You think too much. Amidst the dust, a loud and cold voice suddenly rang out, causing everyone present to tremble. Didn't Shinmeng tell you? She lost to me in one move. What gave you the confidence that heartbroken sorrow could beat me? Amidst the haze, a figure waved his hand, and the smoke and dust that filled the sky quickly dispersed. The entire beast fighting coliseum was completely exposed in front of everyone. Ling Xiao stood there, looking at Zhao Yu with a faint smile. In his hand, he was holding the motionless, heartbroken sorrow. Bang! Ling Xiao threw the body at Zhao Yu's feet. Although the sound of the body hitting the ground wasn't loud, in the eyes of the audience, it was as violent as an earthquake. The battle was over. However, the one who survived wasn't the grief-stricken one they thought was the one who survived. Instead, it was Ling Xiao, who was looked down upon by everyone. A disciple from a sect that was looked down upon by everyone. A new disciple who had just risen recently. A person whose appearance many people had never seen before. He had actually killed the third-ranked core disciple of the 3 southern sects in front of so many people in the capital of Northern Han. On Ling Xiao's face, there was even a mocking smile. If not for heartbroken sorrow sneak attacking him from behind, perhaps the result wouldn't have been like this. These years, the Yuehua school had been too cowardly. However, some sects had been too insolent, to the point that they had forgotten that the world of martial artists was like sailing a boat against the current. If you didn't advance, you would fall behind. Senior apprentice brother Bei actually died. The disciples of the 3 southern sects had completely collapsed. They couldn't believe the scene before their eyes. Only the blink of an eye had passed. They didn't even have the time to swallow their saliva. The senior apprentice brother Bei that they worshipped and admired had actually died. The chief core disciple of the Poison King sect. Humph, that's all there is to it. Your mouth is quite powerful, but it's a pity that your hands are lacking. Ling Xiao looked at the disciples of the 3 southern sects provocatively as he sneered. His words caused the pupils of the disciples of the 3 southern sects to contract. Their expressions of anger were completely exposed. This was definitely a provocation, an absolute humiliation. An eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. They had just insulted the Yuehua school and Ling Xiao. Now, they were just receiving the same treatment. The disciples of the 3 southern sects stared at Ling Xiao. If looks could kill, Ling Xiao would have died hundreds of times already. Who knows what kind of tricks he used? Could it be that the disciples of the Yuehua school are all so arrogant and despicable? Zhao, you seem to feel that he had to stand up at this time. After all, he had to deal with the 3 southern sects and even the holy son of the Poison King sect. He had to stand up for heartbroken sorrow. Ling Xiao smiled faintly. He really didn't know how this person became the crown prince. Such shamelessness was the pinnacle. However, after thinking about it carefully, it was normal. If one didn't have a thick skin and didn't know how to be a crown prince, they wouldn't have been able to become the crown prince. Why? Does your highness want to have a go with me? Ling Xiao looked at Zhao Yu contemptuously, his face full of sarcasm. Zhao Yu was so frightened by these words that he fell back onto his seat and swallowed a mouthful of saliva. He was only a martial vein cultivator, a far cry from grief, broken intestines. How could he dare to fight Ling Xiao? Wouldn't that be courting death? This crown prince disdains to fight with people like you. He held back for a long time and finally squeezed out such a useless sentence. Humph, if you don't even have the courage to fight with me, then shut your mouth and be a good boy with your tail between your legs. Ling Xiao snorted coldly and said, You seem to be mistaken about one thing. In the mystic world, it's not about who has the most power or influence. Here, strength is everything. Zhao Yu's whole body trembled. No one had ever dared to humiliate him like this. Who the hell was this Ling Xiao from the Yuehua school? How dare he do this? Whoever helps this crown prince accept this kid's challenge If he wins, I'll reward him with 1,000,000 mid-grade spirit stones. He'll also be given a high position and a generous salary and eternal wealth." Zhao Yu shouted in a trembling voice. He was forced into a corner and had no choice but to ask the people in the stands for help. Although such a reward was very generous, it was still more important than their lives. Most people lowered their heads, not daring to look at Ling Xiao and Zhao Yu's eyes. "Ha ha ha! All of you have a glib tongue and are good at insulting others. But when it comes to fighting, all of you are cowards. Is this the 3 sects of the South? How useless! How dare you insult our Yuehua school? In the future, when you see our Yuehua school's disciples, you'd better walk with your head down, or you'll be laughed at." Ling Xiao had always been a vengeful person. If others didn't provoke him, he wouldn't provoke them either. However, if someone provoked him, then sorry, he would definitely return the favor 10-fold or 100-fold. He had heard what these people said just now, and each sentence was worse than the last. Now, it was time to collect the debt. Chapter 706. Kid, don't be so arrogant. Let me see what you're capable of. Suddenly, an old man with white hair and beard stood out. A celestial realm elite. Ling Xiao sneered and said, "Which sect are you from?" "Poison King sect." "Poison King sect again? Does the Poison King sect only produce such shameless people? You're already so old. And a celestial realm martial artist actually wants to make things difficult for a 15-year-old kid like me. You really have the nerve to stand out. Is there no one else in the Poison King sect?" Ling Xiao mocked. "Kid, you'll shut up after I kill you." The old man with white hair and beard blushed, but at that moment he could not care less. He thought that as long as he killed Ling Xiao, everything would be fine. However, the moment he jumped out, a figure was faster than him. Boom! The old man was sent flying with blood all over his body, crashing heavily on the ground. Then his head tilted to one side and he stopped breathing. "Sister Moon Maiden, you're too fast. I haven't even finished speaking. He deserves to die," the Moon Maiden said coldly. Then she stood next to Ling Xiao without saying a word and just looked at everyone indifferently. "Sigh, what a pity. A celestial realm elite actually died just like that. That's why I said that one should never be shameless. You want to kill others, but have you ever thought about how others will deal with you?" Ling Xiao sighed, then looked at Zhao Yu and said, "Your Highness, where's my reward?" Gulp. Zhao Yu swallowed a mouthful of saliva and hurriedly ordered someone to bring over the reward. "Oh, it's actually the inner core of a sea serpent beast at the level of a pharaoh king." Thank you, thank you." Ling Xiao was in a good mood right away. He put the items into his storage ring and shouted at the spectator stands, "Yuehua school disciples, listen up. The Yuehua school of today is no longer what it used to be. If you encounter any trouble outside, such as being bullied by people from other sects, you can inform the sect directly. The Yuehua school will always be your strongest support. Those who humiliate others will be humiliated in return. If they bully you, I'll kill them." Finished speaking, he ignored the gazes of worship from the Yuehua school's students. Holding the Moon Maiden's hand, he leapt away, leaving the capital of Northern Han. Now that he had all the materials, what he needed to do next was to refine the spirit liquid. Then he would try his best to raise his cultivation base and the 12 golden lotus arts. In the quiet cave residence, Ling Xiao spent a full 2 hours refining the golden leaf wolf tail grass, the mist flower, and the sea serpent beast's inner core into about a small bowl of golden liquid. Don't be fooled by the small amount. This was a spirit liquid worth over 5 million low-grade spiritual stones. Ordinary martial artists would not be able to afford it. Ling Xiao was fortunate that he could refine the spirit liquid himself. Otherwise, it would have been an enormous expense for him. After all, no matter how rich he was, he only had about 10 million low-grade spiritual stones. Spending 5 million in one go really made his heart ache. With the assistance of the infernal flame, Refining the spirit liquid became much easier. After refining for 2 hours, Ling Xiao was still full of energy, without the slightest trace of exhaustion. Immediately after, he threw the rest of the medicinal ingredients into the golden liquid, using the treasure-grade pill furnace that he had previously obtained to refine the spirit liquid. Another hour passed. The originally golden liquid had increased by quite a bit. However, it had only increased from a small bowl to a large bowl. The color was still golden, with only a few red spots. Just by standing near the pill furnace, one could feel the abundant energy emitted by the spirit liquid. This kind of energy was too frightening. If directly consumed, one's body would definitely explode and die. Therefore, it could only be used to make the spirit liquid and soak in it. Ling Xiao mixed the golden spirit liquid into the bathtub according to a certain ratio, creating a tub of spirit liquid. The water used was not ordinary water, but spirit spring water that was rich in spiritual energy and various minerals. This way, the effects of soaking in the liquid would be better. The instant the spirit liquid was dropped into the water, the entire tub of water turned a beautiful golden color. Warm sunlight shone down from the light-gathering formation, causing the entire immortal's cave to turn into a golden world. Ling Xiao took off his clothes and sat in the water, beginning to cultivate the 12 golden lotus arts. If his estimations were correct, as long as he could cultivate the 12 golden lotus arts to the 5th layer and comprehend the power of the 5th heavenly phenomenon, his cultivation would advance to the half-step Empyrean realm. He had not refined this spirit liquid for nothing. Just the materials he had purchased in the capital of Northern Han were already worth 5 million low-grade spiritual stones. If he were to add in the precious medicinal ingredients he had taken out from his storage ring, even 10 million low-grade spiritual stones would not be enough to stop him from spending so much. If he still couldn't advance to the half-step Empyrean realm, then he would be a failure. Within the wooden tub, the golden spirit liquid swayed slightly, even starting to bubble and mist. A large amount of energy was entering Ling Xiao's body through his pores. Ling Xiao's chest rose and fell rhythmically, his breathing following a certain rhythm. As time passed, the energy began to merge into his meridians and blood, slowly circulating throughout his body. In that instant, Ling Xiao's entire body was like a golden Buddha, emitting a dazzling metallic luster. Perhaps because he felt the barrier to his cultivation begin to loosen, Ling Xiao's face revealed a satisfied smile. At that moment, the image of the pestilence demon king appeared behind him, releasing the poisonous miasma that he had absorbed from sorrow heartbreak. If bystanders were to see this scene, they would definitely jump in fright. There was actually someone who dared to cultivate in this kind of environment. This was simply courting death. However, the poisonous miasma did not pose any threat to Ling Xiao. On the contrary, it formed a connection with the bewildering mist flower and the sea serpent beast Sniden, causing the mist within the cave to become even denser. Within Ling Xiao's mountain river martial spirit, a faint mist began to form. The embryonic form of the 5th lotus petal gradually appeared on the golden lotus. Although it was still very indistinct and extremely unstable, it had appeared. This was a good start. Ling Xiao did not have the moon maiden come over to help. This was because asking others to help when encountering difficulties would easily lead to laziness. This would be extremely detrimental to a martial artist's development. At the same time, more and more energy entered Ling Xiao's body from the tub. The rising mist also mixed into the mist within the cave. The entire cave was completely immersed in a world of dense mist. Nothing could be seen. Ling Xiao had completely entered a state of cultivation. He was so focused that he forgot to eat and sleep, even forgetting the time outside. 1 day, 2 days. Time passed quickly, and the day of the Sacred Dynasty's martial arts festival was getting closer and closer. While Ling Xiao was cultivating, the disciples of the other sects did not stop either. The pressure on the 6 young masters of the Sacred Dynasty was greater than his. These people were also giving their all. No one wanted to lose to others in the Sacred Dynasty's Martial Arts Festival. Chapter 707. After an unknown amount of time, Ling Xiao's eyes slowly opened. His bright eyes had a hint of mist in them. Success. 12 Golden Lotus Arts has broken through to the 5th stage and comprehended the 5th type of heavenly phenomenon. Fog heavenly phenomenon. Not only that, but his cultivation had also officially entered the half-step heavenly venerable realm. This was an extremely significant breakthrough. In the past, when he fought a half-step heavenly venerable with a 9th layer transcendent realm cultivation, he had to enter his human dragon form unless there were special circumstances. Moreover, he had to enter his 10th form. Ling Xiao had no confidence in such a battle because if he lost, there would be no way out. He would have to enter his ancient golden dragon form. However, once he entered his ancient golden dragon form, he might face a bloody pursuit and slaughter. At that time, it would be really troublesome. Therefore, he had to have full confidence in a battle. This was to improve his cultivation. On the day he came out of seclusion, he heard that Lan Yu had also broken through to the half-step heavenly venerable realm. Lan Hao had reached the peak of the 9th layer transcendent realm, and Dai Yuling had also reached the peak of the 9th layer transcendent realm. These two were now direct competitors. However, it could be considered a healthy competition. As for Zhao Ji, his progress during this time should be the greatest. His cultivation had already reached the early stage of the 8th layer transcendent realm. Among the top 10 core disciples, he was ranked second only to Dai Yuling. However, when they saw Ling Xiao, they still couldn't believe their eyes. Senior brother Ling, you're too amazing. I thought I was getting closer and closer to you, but you suddenly became a half-step heavenly venerable. The gap between us has widened again. Lan Hao couldn't help but shake his head and smile bitterly. Ling Xiao thought to himself, isn't this nonsense? For the sake of increasing my cultivation, how many spiritual stones have I spent? I even went to the capital of Northern Han to fight. If I can't increase my cultivation as quickly as you, then wouldn't that be too shameful? There were only 5 days left until the Sacred Dynasty Martial Arts Festival. Wu Xiang summoned the 10 core disciples of Yuehua School to the meeting room. According to the rules of the Sacred Dynasty's Martial Arts Festival, each of the 12 sects can send a maximum of 100 disciples to participate. It is divided into preliminaries and finals. The location of the preliminaries is the True Devil Forbidden Area, which is the former True Devil Empire's palace. That place is filled with danger, but it is also full of opportunities. Wu Xiang reminded, the preliminaries will eliminate most of the disciples. In the end, the 12 sects will only have around 200 people left. The location of the finals will be the capital of the Sacred Dynasty, Sky Dragon City. The preliminaries will start the day after tomorrow, so you guys should prepare a little and leave today. In fact, if it weren't for the fact that they were waiting for Ling Xiao to come out of seclusion, this time would have been brought forward. Wu Xiang had the highest expectations for Ling Xiao. Ling Xiao appeared very calm and composed. He stood there without revealing the slightest trace of a martial artist's aura. It was as if he was a part of nature, but the more ordinary it looked, the more reassuring it was. Concealing one's divine aura was not something an ordinary person could do. Before, Ling Xiao didn't have much confidence in defeating Jian Wuji, unless he entered the ancient golden dragon form, and he might even have to use the seal card. But now he had 90% confidence that he could defeat Jian Wuji. As for the Holy Sun, he also had 50% confidence. But this confidence was not enough. He still needed to improve. And the True Devil Forbidden Area mentioned in the preliminaries was the key to improving his strength in the next stage. That place was the preliminaries, but it was also an opportunity. In addition, each martial artist can only enter the True Devil Forbidden Area once. I don't know why, but if you go in for the second time, you will be thrown out by a very terrifying force. So you guys are lucky. The top 50 martial artists will not participate in this preliminaries. They are considered as seated contestants. Wu Xiang continued. For most of our sect's participants, after participating in the preliminaries, they may not have the chance to move forward. But I hope that everyone can gain something in the True Devil Forbidden Area. Sect leader, we will work hard, Zhao Ji said excitedly. He was very happy to be able to raise his cultivation to the early stage of the Transcendent Realm 8th layer before the Martial Arts Festival. He didn't expect to enter the top 100. As long as he could get a good result in the preliminaries, it would be enough. Haha, don't be too pressured. This time, as long as 2 of our Yuehua school can enter the finals, it will be considered an improvement. Wu Xiang was actually a little embarrassed when he said this, because the 2 best results of the Yuehua school were only 1 person who entered the finals. In the end, they didn't enter the top 100. It was too embarrassing to say it out loud. It was no wonder that the people outside the sect looked down on the Yuehua school. Senior Brother Wu, Senior Brother Ling should be qualified to become one of the new 6 young masters of the sacred dynasty. When that time comes, our Yuehua school will gain a lot of face, Leng Hao said excitedly. By the way, speaking of this, Junior Brother Ling, are you confident in defeating Jian Wuji? Wu Xiang didn't dare to ask about the Holy Sun because he wasn't confident in himself. I'm 100% confident. An 80% chance was 100% for Ling Xiao. Junior Brother Ling, you might not know this, but Jian Wuji recently made a breakthrough. It's said that he's already a half-step heavenly venerable with 90% strength. This means that the 6 young masters of the sacred dynasty have all reached 90% strength. The only difference is in martial arts, strength, and combat experience. Wu Xiang reminded. With his aptitude, it's normal for him to make a breakthrough. There's nothing strange about it. I've already counted myself in. Ling Xiao said indifferently. To be honest, Senior Brother Wu, my goal has always been the Holy Sun. As for Jian Wuji, as long as he doesn't provoke me, I won't bother with him. Hearing this, Wu Xiang shook his head and smiled bitterly. How much strength was this junior brother of his hiding? He didn't even put Jian Wuji in his eyes. The rest of the core disciples were shocked. In their eyes, the Holy Sun was absolutely invincible. Now, someone wanted to challenge the Holy Sun, and it was someone of the same generation as them. Was he really that strong? Or was he just bluffing? Ling Xiao didn't care what they thought. He was only a half-step heavenly venerable with 10% strength because he hadn't fully absorbed the spiritual liquid and the energy left by the human king at the bottom of the sea. After this preliminary round, he estimated that he could make a breakthrough in his cultivation. In the finals, it shouldn't be a problem for him to reach half-step heavenly venerable with 50% strength. It might even be higher. After all, it was hard to say what he would encounter in the True Devil Forbidden Area. If he was lucky, it would be a big gain. Okay, you all go and get ready. We'll gather at the square in 15 minutes. Wu Xiang was a little skeptical about Ling Xiao's words. He knew that Ling Xiao was strong, but could Ling Xiao really defeat the Holy Sun? It seemed to be a little too difficult. He had seen the Holy Sun before. Although he was still young, the Holy Sun's martial soul was definitely incomparably powerful. It might even be one of the 9 dragon souls of the primordial dragon kings. The higher one's cultivation was, the more one could understand this. Chapter 708. Of course, in Wu Xiang's opinion, the Holy Sun's strength and talent were obvious. Novel law, however, he couldn't see through Ling Xiao. In fact, he had wanted to see what level Ling Xiao had reached many times. However, his vision was always blurry, as if he couldn't see anything clearly. What secrets did Ling Xiao have? Even he was a little curious. However, he was just curious. He believed that with his relationship with Ling Xiao would definitely tell him when he could. After leaving Wu Xiang's place, Ling Xiao went to the Moon Lady's place. When he got there, he saw the Moon Lady reading an old book. Sister Moon Lady, when did you become so studious? Ling Xiao asked with a smile. This is a book that I recently got. It has a more detailed definition of the 3 religions and 9 sects. Do you want to know? The Moon Lady said, It's the classification of sects, right? Isn't this used in ancient times? Is it still used now? Ling Xiao asked in confusion. Of course it is. It's just that the sects on the Sky Dragon continent are too weak, so you might not know about it. The Moon Lady replied, Too weak? Sister Moon Lady, don't tell me that there isn't even a 9th-rate sect on the Sky Dragon continent? Ling Xiao asked with a smile. He seemed to have heard that although the Yuehua school was an unrated sect, it could still be considered a 9th-rate sect. Why wasn't it the same when it came to the Moon Lady? Maybe there is. I guess the Heavenly King sect can barely be considered a 9th-rate sect. The Aquamarine Palace can also reach this level. As for the other 10 sects, it's impossible. The Moon Lady replied, That's ridiculous. Ling Xiao was stunned. The 3 religions and 9 sects. There were only 2 sects in the Sky Dragon continent that could possibly reach the 9th sex. This was too shabby. Too many things have happened during my long slumber. The Sky Dragon continent is really dying. Fortunately, the appearance of the mountain river Martial Soul has revived the continent. I hope it will get better in the future. The Moon Maiden sighed. Big Sister Moon Maiden, how are the 3 religions and 9 sects categorized? Is there no record of it? Ling Xiao was very interested in this. The words recorded in this book are also unclear, but based on the words, I can deduce the general requirements of a 9th-rate sect. The Moon Maiden thought for a moment and said, Firstly, there must be at least 1 Grotto Heaven Realm expert. Besides that, there must be at least 3 Quasi-Grotto Heaven Realm experts. Lastly, there must be at least 100 Sky Realm experts. This is the most basic requirement. There are also martial arts and economic requirements, which I am not very clear about. TSK, if we don't count Big Sister Yuanu, the Yuehua school is indeed far from being a Grotto Heaven Realm martial artist. They do have 1 Grotto Heaven Realm martial artist, but none of them are at the half-step Grotto Heaven Realm. There are also less than 20 Celestial Realm martial artists. Ling Xiao was speechless. That's right, and this is just the armed forces. I haven't counted the rest yet. The Moon Maiden nodded. Sai, if the Yuehua school is not even a Sky Realm martial artist, then my Divine Sword sect is not even worth mentioning. Ling Xiao sighed in his heart. He took the book from the Moon Maiden and glanced at it. He found that in addition to the division of sects, there were also some myths and legends in this book. These stories might not be true, but there should be a source. According to the book, the mystic world was one of the trillions of worlds ruled by the gods. In the eyes of the gods, the mystic world might be a speck of dust, a drop of water, or an inconspicuous single-celled animal. A speck of dust was a world, and a drop of water was a world. The book also said that when the mystic world was first born, it was chaos and there were no living creatures. Later, a god came to this world and felt that it was too desolate, so he created wild beasts. Among them, the most successful was the dragon race. The Dragon Emperor and the 9 great dragon kings were originally the guardians of this god. After doing these things, he left, and the book called him Beast God. Later, a pair of brother and sister came. They found that the wild beasts in the mystic world were too cruel and unfriendly, so the brother used his divine power to create plants and was called Nature God. The sister saved a weak race and taught them the way of martial arts. This race later became the human race, so the sister was also called Human God. However, the mystic world was only a stop on their journey, and they soon left. After that, the mystic world began to develop on its own, and the humans were forced to the brink of extinction by the wild beasts. At this time, the human king appeared. According to the book, the human king was not a god, but he did come from another world. He created a martial soul cultivation method and built a systematic martial arts foundation with his subordinates. This made the human race even stronger. Under his leadership, the human race defeated the wild beasts. Later, the alien race invaded, and the human race and the wild beasts were once again faced with the danger of extinction. This time, the losses were too great. Although the alien race was driven away, the human king mysteriously disappeared, and the 12 immortals died tragically on the battlefield. The 9 great dragon kings were also killed by the alien race. The human race's martial arts fell into a broken state. The wild beasts fell into a deep sleep. The reason why the mystic world was split into 13 continents was that the accumulated power of that battle caused a terrible earthquake, causing the oceanic plates to shift greatly. Ling Xiao was also clear about the history after that. Most of the time, the people on the 13 continents did not interact with each other. Until the appearance of the true demon empire, everything changed. Then the current situation occurred. The things in the book, the more detailed the records were, and the more realistic they were. The records of the ancient era had elements of imagination and myth. But it could not be denied that they were fake, because there were also some martial artists in the mystic world who liked to explore and archaeology. They had obtained a lot of evidence to prove that the things recorded in the book were true. If it was true, what was the heavenly dragon continent? What was the mystic world? A grain of dust in a trillion? A grain of water in a trillion? A world that the gods could destroy at any time? This was too terrifying. Ling Xiao shook his head. Although these things were terrifying for the current Ling Xiao, it did not seem to have much meaning. The only thing he could do now was to become stronger. Continue to become stronger. Step out of the heavenly dragon continent first. Perhaps when he reached the divine phoenix continent, he could find out more secrets. Speaking of which, the 9 great dragon king martial spirits are actually the martial spirits of the little pets raised by the gods. But the origin of the mountain and river martial spirit is a bit strange. The human king could have come from outside the mystic world and not belong to the mystic world. No wonder the mountain and river martial spirit could easily swallow and transform the ancient hell dragon martial spirit. Just as Ling Xiao was pondering, the little butterfly in the mountain and river martial spirit gently flapped its wings. Chapter 709. This little butterfly that had almost been forgotten by Ling Xiao had only flapped its wings lightly, but it had caused a huge change in the situation. Of course, this change happened outside the mystic world, so Ling Xiao definitely couldn't sense it. All he could sense was the special aura emitted from the little butterfly's body, which actually allowed his cultivation to increase by 1 level. 20% of his strength. Half-step heavenly venerable. How could it be so easy to advance? Ling Xiao couldn't help but reveal a shocked expression. It seemed that this little butterfly had some kind of special connection with the mountain and river martial spirit, and it definitely wasn't something ordinary. The improvement brought by a light flap of its wings was almost on par with the spirit liquid that Ling Xiao had spent tens of millions of low-grade spirit stones to concoct. It was simply heaven-defying. You actually advanced. The Moon Maiden was also a little surprised. She had never heard that just looking could increase one's cultivation. That's right, I advanced, but not because of it, but because of something else. By the way, Sister Moon Maiden, are you going to the Sacred Dynasty's Martial Arts Festival? Ling Xiao asked. Of course, because I also want to know the strength of the Sacred Emperor and the Heavenly King Sect Master. There was no first place, and there was no second place in martial arts. The Yin-Yang Realm Moon Maiden had encountered a powerful demon king before, but now she was almost invincible. This wasn't a good feeling, so she hoped to see more experts. It was true that the heavenly dragon continent had declined, but since the mountain and river martial spirit had reappeared on the heavenly dragon continent, there might be stronger cultivators. However, the Moon Maiden didn't go with Ling Xiao and the others this time. Perhaps she felt that staying by Ling Xiao's side would affect Ling Xiao's improvement. After all, once a person had a backer, it was easy to gradually learn to be lazy. Ling Xiao respected and understood the Moon Maiden's choice. Then, under the leadership of Wu Xiang, Heavenly Venerable Golden Light, Wang Han Tianzuan, and Heavenly Venerable Heavenly Eye, hundreds of Yuehua school disciples, selected from the inner sect, boarded the Moonlight treasure ship and headed to the True Devil Forbidden Area. Just as they were about to leave the sect, a fierce and hateful gaze stared at the Moonlight treasured ship. It was cold and ruthless. This cold and hateful gaze didn't escape Ling Xiao's soul power. That was the gaze of the flame deity. As for Empyrean demon flame, Ling Xiao had considered whether or not he should strike first to gain the upper hand. But the problem was that he no longer had his spirit body. He definitely wasn't a match for Empyrean demon flame. Although Wu Xian and the Moon Maiden could kill the flame deity hadn't done anything to betray the sect during this period of time. Killing him for no reason was no different from killing Chang Yueli and the others in the past. Because of this, the flame deity was still alive. However, this person had been keeping a very low profile recently and had been cultivating madly in seclusion. However, no matter how much he cultivated, he realized that Ling Xiao's strength was getting closer and closer to his. Now he felt a sense of oppression that he had never felt before. Especially after carefully studying Ling Xiao's growth trajectory, he felt even more uneasy. It had only been half a year since Ling Xiao had joined the Yuehua school, but everything this person did made people have a whole new level of respect for him. He dominated the outer sect and became the #1 outer sect disciple. He dealt with the Plague Demon King and was silently favored by the Moon Maiden. After that, he broke the 100,000-year record in the Moonlight Treasure Pagoda and completely established his power, causing their sect to lose all power and influence. Even the Moonlight Fairy had helped him. Then he became a core disciple and killed the Yuehua school's #1 genius of the new generation, Ming Tian. During the 4-sect competition, he shocked the world with his battle and defeated the Beast King Palace's Decepticons and the Sword King sect's Chen Meng. What was even more frightening was that when the Holy Sun came to denounce him, this kid didn't reduce his might at all. He even chased the Holy Sun and the others out of the Yuehua school. Now, the outside world was saying that Ling Xiao would definitely become one of the new Sacred Dynasty's 6th young masters during the Sacred Dynasty's martial arts festival. He was able to defeat Jian Wuji and even challenge the Holy Sun. The flame deity couldn't stay calm anymore because of these terrifying records. He had originally wanted to continue improving his cultivation until he surpassed Wu Xiang and the Moon Maiden. Then he would be able to trample on these people. However, from the looks of it, Ling Xiao might have already surpassed him before he could surpass those two people. Therefore, he definitely couldn't continue sitting around and waiting for death. He returned to the Volcano Palace, where a man in black was waiting. "Go back and tell that lord that I accept his suggestion." The flame deity said coldly to the man in black, "That's right. You should know that without our help, you won't be able to obtain the Yuehua school, let alone kill Ling Xiao. Goodbye." The man in black smiled, turned around, and left the Volcano Palace. He quickly fled into the distance. There's no other way. Even if I become a demon, I have to get rid of this Ling Xiao. Otherwise, I'll never have a day of peace. The flame deity gritted his teeth and sat down cross-legged again. Black flames burned behind him. Crimson Desert, True Devil Forbidden Area. The mournful red sun shone down on the earth, giving off a strange feeling. The terrifyingly high temperature caused the air to distort like water. Withered bones and broken weapons could be seen everywhere on the ground. A gorgeous treasure ship flew over from the distance. Sitting on it were the people from the Yuehua school. "Sect Master, let the Moonlight treasure ship land. The airspace near the True Devil Forbidden Area is very dangerous. We can't continue flying. It's not far away anyway." Heavenly Eye was a veteran and had been here before, so he was more familiar with the situation here. When they approached, he reminded Wu Xiang. Wu Xiang nodded and controlled the Moonlight treasure ship to land. Asterisk hoo hoo hoo. Asterisk the wind in the desert was raging, mixed with a thick smell of blood. Even if a transcendent realm cultivator had true chi to protect their body, they still felt a little suffocated in this environment. Be careful. Strange things often happen in the Crimson Desert. It's said that the souls of the true Devil Empire are causing trouble here. Empyrean Heavenly Eye reminded everyone as he made his preparations. However, right at this moment, a huge black shadow appeared in the midst of the raging winds, charging towards them at high speed. Not good, it's the Black Devil's shadow. Ling Xiao had heard of the Black Devil's shadow before. One could think of it as a natural disaster or a kind of demon. Because the Black Devil shadow had merged with the souls of the dead, it made the original Black Devil shadow even more ferocious and intelligent. The most terrifying thing was that wherever the Black Devil shadow attacked, all living beings would turn into withered corpses without a trace of blood. Quick, everyone, use your strength to blast this Black Devil shadow away, or we'll all die. Heavenly Lord, Heavenly, I roared and began to gather his power. The others did not dare to be negligent and desperately gathered their strength. Asterisk boom. Asterisk the attacks of more than 200 people, including Grotto Heaven Realm experts, only pushed the Black Devil shadow back a few dozen meters. Chapter 710. Not good. We're too unlucky. How could we encounter such a thing? Looks like we can only return. Heavenly Eye frowned and turned around to order everyone to retreat. However, at this moment, a butterfly appeared on Ling Xiao's shoulder. With a light flap of its wings, the ferocious Black Devil shadow completely disappeared. The butterfly appeared quickly and disappeared quickly. Ling Xiao only sensed it slightly, let alone the others. Everyone just felt lucky that the Black Devil shadow disappeared inexplicably, and they finally survived the robbery. Look over there. That's the true Devil Forbidden Land. Heavenly, I pointed at the huge black tornado in the distance and said, it was said that only when the black tornado opened could one enter the true Devil Forbidden Land. Moreover, it opened in the same year as the Sacred Dynasty Martial Arts Festival. In fact, the reason why the Sacred Dynasty Martial Arts Festival was held during this time was because the true Devil Forbidden Land opened during this time. There were many figures near the huge black tornado. Although they were too far away to see clearly, it was certain that almost all the people from the 12 sects had arrived. The true Devil Forbidden Land will open in a few hours. Let's go over. Wu Xiang waved his hand, and everyone quickened their pace. Each of them used their movement techniques and moved closer to the black tornado. Not long after, the Yuehua School's group arrived near the black tornado. Ling Xiao raised his head to take a look. This black dragon was really like a black divine dragon, as if it was going to break through the sky. It was at least a few hundred meters tall, and its top couldn't be seen at all. Its diameter was estimated to be at least a few thousand meters, so it was definitely not small inside. At this time, many sects had set up camp near the black tornado. Because the preliminaries might last for 2 days or even longer, they could not sleep in the open all the time. The date of the finals was set according to the preliminaries. Basically, after the preliminaries ended, the day of the finals would be the day of the finals. This was mainly because the date of the preliminaries was not fixed. Many people came out after a while, and some people could not come out for a day or two. The true Devil Forbidden Land was similar to the Moonlight Pagoda, but it was obviously more dangerous. Moreover, people would really die, and they would not be teleported out after death. Coupled with the fact that there were so many people participating, the possibility of an accident was even greater. In terms of numbers, there were thousands of people in the vicinity of the Black Dragon tornado. Some of them were disciples participating in the preliminaries, while others were experts leading their teams. They were all dressed differently. Although some of their clothes were of the same color, the styles and logos on them were all different. This was also to show that they came from different sections. The people from the Sword King sect had arrived much earlier than the Yuehua School. but there were only a few disciples participating. Qinming and Jianfeng were among them. The rest were the core disciples who were in closed-door cultivation during the four-faction martial competition. Jian Wuji didn't come, and there was no need for him to come. As one of the 6 young masters of the sacred dynasty, he had already participated in the preliminaries of the true Devil Forbidden Zone. This time, he could directly enter the finals. The people from the Beast King Palace had also arrived, including Ingwea, Decepticons, Shijiao, Wanglang, Li Hu, and others. Ingwea gave off a completely different feeling. Who knew what this kid had experienced? Not only had he become more reserved, but he also had a very sharp and terrifying aura. Half-step Heavenly Venerate with 50% strength. How did he advance so quickly? Lan Yue was shocked. You can tell just by looking at the fact that he's missing an eye and an arm. He must have participated in some extremely dangerous trial. With such effort, there will surely be some sort of reward. This Brett isn't easy to deal with. His current strength is probably much stronger than Chen Meng and the tyrannical Sky Tiger. Senior Sister Lan, if you encounter him, remember not to fight recklessly. Ling Xiao reminded. Lan Yu didn't doubt Ling Xiao's words. Ling Xiao had never misjudged anything. But then again, although Ingwea was strong, there were many unfamiliar faces that were even more terrifying. Among the thousands of young disciples participating in the preliminaries, except for the Yuehua school, all of them were at least in the Transcendent Realm 9th stage. Among them, 70% were half-step Heavenly Venerates, and more than 30% were half-step Heavenly Venerates with 50% strength. What surprised Ling Xiao the most was that there were more than a dozen half-step Heavenly Venerates with 70% or 80% strength. This was really a gathering of talents and masters. If a mere preliminaries had such a level of strength, what would happen in the finals? No, I really need to improve my cultivation. Ling Xiao looked at the Black Dragon Scroll. Whether or not he could have a better chance of winning in the finals would depend on whether he could obtain some benefits from the Black Dragon Scroll. Wu Xiang suddenly said to everyone with a serious face, "When you enter the true Devil Forbidden area, remember to be careful. If you can't fight with your strength, immediately retreat. As long as you don't die, the secret technique scroll that injured you will be able to bring you out." I really didn't expect there to be so many masters in a mere preliminaries. Senior Brother Wu, with Senior Sister Lan's strength, if she was in the last martial arts festival, what would her rank be? Ling Xiao asked very cautiously. Wu Xiang replied, in the last martial arts festival, the worst of the top 100 were half-step Heavenly Venerates with 50% strength. The top 50 were half-step Heavenly Venerates with 70% strength, and the top 20 were half-step Heavenly Venerates with 80% strength. As for the 6 young masters of the sacred dynasty, except for Jian Wuji, all of them were half-step Heavenly Venerates with 90% strength. No wonder these people are so strong. Ling Xiao clenched his teeth. There were really many masters. Any of the 6 young masters of the sacred dynasty could break through to the celestial realm in the martial arts festival. At that time, they would really be invincible. According to the rules of the martial arts festival, all martial artists under the age of 20 could participate. Once someone reached the celestial realm, they would definitely be the strongest of the new generation. Junior Brother Ling, there's something I've been thinking about for a long time, but I still think I should say it. You said that you want to challenge the 6 young masters of the sacred dynasty, but that's only before they reach the celestial realm. Once they reach the celestial realm, your chances will be slim. Wu Xiang said after a moment of silence. I understand. Ling Xiao nodded. In fact, he had considered this matter, but it was meaningless to worry about it blindly. If there was no other way, he could only rely on the power of the sealed land. Of course, he would try not to use the sealed land for this kind of competition. After all, it would be a bit too shameless. It's good that you understand. If you really can't defeat the Holy Sun, I'll find a way to help you. Wu Xiang patted Ling Xiao on the shoulder and said, Anyway, I won't let you be that little girl's slave. No. Ling Xiao shook his head and said, Senior Brother Wu, I've made a promise. Of course, I won't go back on it. Besides, don't worry. I said I'll defeat her, so I'll definitely win. He couldn't let Wu Xiang clean up after him. That would be too disloyal.